Folks, we are back in Hall C for Mainframe Comic-Con, Day 1, Part 2 of the Hall C stream. Thank you so much for joining us again. You guys look at the schedule of events. We have Albatross Funny Books. We'll be doing a panel right now. They are all piling in backstage. Very excited to get started. A lot of really great panels coming up for the rest of the day as well, so make sure you stick around. Do yourself a favor and do everybody here a favor, and make sure you click that green button below the stream. Give to the Hero Initiative. That's what we're here for, gang. We're here to raise awareness for heroinitiative.org and raise some money for them as well. There's also some really great opportunities for you to enjoy other parts of the con, like our exhibitor page where we have books and original art for sale, fantastic slabs, old keys, new keys, gold keys, silver keys, all kinds of great stuff. Be sure to check that out. I'm going to go ahead and hand you guys over to the next panel, which is Albatross Funny Books with Eric Powell and company. Here we go.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is James Enstall, and I'm very glad to host this panel. Thank you for joining Mainframe Comic-Con. I host a weekly radio show called Geek to Me Radio. We cover the world of pop culture, which is why I'm so excited to talk to these people from Albatross Funny Books. We've got on the panel with us Eric Powell. We have Gabe Surya. Hopefully I pronounced that right. Gabe Surya. There's Gabe. We've got Rafer Roberts.
How's it going?
Mike Norton. Don't have Mike? There
he is.
Steve Mannion. You over there? Maybe not. There's Steve. Brett Parson is also with us. And last but certainly not least, Gideon Kendall is with us.
Hello.
So full house. Gentlemen, thanks very much for doing this, and thanks for allowing me to host this. They're all here to hear about you. So I think my first question, I guess, was obviously we're all very distressed to see what happened to DC Comics recently. I know many of you are creator-owned people. You're independent, you're freelance. So that's kind of an interesting position because you're seeing all these people who were at a corporate comic book company, and now they're obviously going to be looking for work. As freelancers, you own your own stuff, so that's got to provide a bit of a safety net. But I'm sure it's a double-edged sword. Let's go ahead and start with Eric and your thoughts on the whole situation and your thoughts on being freelance.
Yeah. Can you hear me, first of all?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's an unfortunate situation. I haven't worked for DC in quite some time. It's unfortunate to see these people losing their livelihoods. But it's definitely a warning to us. I mean, it's something that I've been talking about for a long time, that, you know, Marvel and DC are the pillar that holds up the industry, and they're owned by corporations that look at bottom line rather than having a love of comic books. So if they decide, no, what these properties would be better off in video games or movies or something else, I mean, they can scrap the publishing divisions whenever they want. I'm not saying they're doing that. I'm just saying it's something we need to consider and think about, and maybe prop up other comics and you know, to equal out the playing field a little bit. Of course, I don't think those characters are going to go away, even if they stopped publishing. I'm sure they would just be licensed by some other publisher, and they would still be making those comics in some format. But it's not something I want to see happen.
And, oh, sorry, go ahead. Steve, were you about to jump in?
No.
Oh, okay. I thought I saw you say something. But you guys have such a great own. I went on the website and did my due diligence before having you guys on. And for those of you who are out there getting comic book stores, this I was able to pick this up recently for Free Comic Book Day. And I hadn't read a Hillbilly Tale before, but it was a great jumping on point. I would go back and read the other things now. So, and you've all got stuff you're working on. There's Mega Ghost, there's Galacticon, there's a bunch of other stuff that you're all working on. Tank Girl, I'm very excited for King Tank Girl coming out. If you would just kind of talk a little bit about each one of you, we'll start with Gabe. about your love, or just you do this because you love it. It's a passion project, and I think that's really what's raising a lot of the independent press up right now. Gabe, you there?
All right, bear with me because I seem to be getting a lot of lag. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
now we can.
Am I getting? Is okay. I'm getting a lot of lag on my end. I can't tell if my internet or not, and
We're getting some great food frames.
to deal with
Here
this
you
for the Comic-Con. Okay. You can hear me. Am I fluttering around?
We can hear you, but you're just
Yeah,
Yeah,
not really.
video is choppy, but your audio is
Okay.
It's like
I'm gonna
Gabe.
pop out. I'm gonna pop out for a second and log back in.
Okay. We'll throw it to Gideon.
I'm gonna pop out
Oh no!
and come back in. So, James, if you turn that question, I try this again.
All right. Yeah, he's going to log. So we'll get Gabe back in just a moment. Gideon, your thoughts on independently owned stuff? I know it's a lot of the stuff out there, and for my money, is better than some of the big stuff that's out there.
Well, I mean, independent stuff is really all I've done. I'm sort of relatively new to comics, even though I'm old. So, getting to work on Mega Ghost and work with Albatross has been awesome. As a kid, I didn't know anything other than the majors, but a lot changed in between the time I kind of drifted away from comics and then came back to it. The whole thing changed, and obviously most of the really cool stuff started being done in the independent sphere, I guess. So it makes sense to me, coming from I spent a lot of time like in the world of punk rock and indie rock and stuff, and this is like the same thing, but a little bit of a healthier lifestyle, I think, in a way. Yes, I mean,
Is it?
well, yeah, I would think maybe that's a sad thing, but I think it's true. So, I mean, I love it. I mean, Gabe and I have been free to make Mega Ghost exactly what we want to make it. And that's awesome. That's the way it should be in any kind of creative endeavor.
And you guys have a Mega Ghost collection coming out. I think it's is it September or October? You guys have a coming
I
out.
believe it comes out in October. You can pre-order it now. But yeah, it comes out in October. Gabe, are you back? You wanna give the Mega Ghost spiel? Oh boy.
So many times over the god. I might just have to be like pointing to Gideon.
There you go.
And you can hear me.
Yeah.
We can hear you. There's a light lag, but we can still hear you. It's just you're frozen now with your finger in Gideon's head. So
Mega Ghost is
Oh. Oh.
okay. I mean, the spiel about Mega. I'll just stay very still.
okay.
The spiel for Mega Ghost. I mean, it is basically like I've unconsciously been wanting to make ever since I was 10 years old. It's me like basically being able to write a cartoon series that I wanted to see and half dreamed about. It's a combination of everything I ever like a Saturday cartoon screen. I mean, kids nowadays obviously don't do Saturday morning cartoons. They have Wednesday afternoon cartoons, Sunday midnight cartoons, whatever. But I wanted to like recapture that feeling, and hopefully, like Giddy and I are getting that, and making it understandable to kids nowadays. It's weird fun, and I think that kids anywhere will understand weird fun. And like Eric, we were able talk to Eric and get the pitch to him, and he immediately just responded like it was complete giant undead robots fighting giant monster stuff. It was really just right up the Albatross alley. So, gosh, I hope we can do more. I hope we can do more. I have a lot of Gideon and I have a lot of big plans for a couple more Mega Ghost stories. We want to end it at some point, but until we get there, we have some like really kind of interesting and gross and funny things to show off to everybody out there.
One of the great
Could everybody hear that?
Imagine if like your favorite Saturday morning cartoon show was like made on a Disney feature budget, like, where like instead of it being like lots of reuse and flat stuff and whatever, it was like you could really go into it. It wasn't just simplified. It was like a whole world that you could go into and be a part of. That's what we wanted it to be like the perfect Saturday morning cartoon.
Nice.
One of the great
but
things
with a
about
lot of occult overtones.
Yeah. And one of the things with the trade paperback that they've got coming out, if anyone has read the single issues, there's going to be bonus material. They've done this really cool thing where they've added content between the issues that kind of link. I'm not going to say what they've done because I want it to be a surprise, but it links all of the issues together in a really interesting way for the trade paperback. I think it's a really cool feature that they've added.
It's cool.
And talking about new projects, Brett, with Tank Girl, that's going to be coming, I think, October, as I think we said. King Tank Girl hits the shelves.
Yeah.
And that's obviously, I took a look at your website. It's a beautiful website, by the way. But having Tank Girl, I was thinking about streaming services. We've got all the different platforms. We're seeing big budget film releases of comic book properties. And of course, stuff like Lock and Key on Netflix and things like that. If talking about Tank Girl, do you think Tank Girl will work better now as a big budget film or more of like a streaming type of show like Lock and Key style?
I don't know. I know that Alan, the writer and creator, was never a big fan of his experience when they made the film back in the 90s. He kind of got like the short end of the stick with that. But we've talked a little bit about like if they did make it into something that it would be almost better as an animated show on Netflix. And since Jamie Hewlett is like the creator, something in his sort of Gorillaz style would be pretty cool.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah, it'd be great.
But the bummer is that when they signed the deal, I think for the movie back in the 90s, they signed away the rights to film forever. So
wow.
Basically everything we create in the comics could be made into a movie at any time, and we get nothing.
Yeah.
So
If there's any lawyers listening, we need to have this looked at. Please give Albatross Comics a call so we can get the rectified.
Ooh.
But I know, obviously, we've been experiencing COVID. As an introverted
if we could say anything to...
Go ahead.
what's that?
I think it was Gabe.
Oh, I was saying if we could say any... I think my lag is just too bad. I'm just gonna shut. It's too bad.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's all right.
Way to leave us hanging there. That's
Gotta go more like
I'm enjoying the screenshots,
find
though.
out what he was going to say.
So, but talking about COVID, obviously, as an introvert, I've kind of been okay with social distancing from way back in junior high. As creative people, as artists, has this been a time for you to really kind of like knock some stuff out, or is it having a different effect on you? Start with Mike.
Now, Mike is a machine. I don't think anything is going to stop him from drawing.
It started that way. I'm over it now. I am, as Eric said, I am a machine, but I am a old, rusty, broken machine now. And I'm going to be put out in a pasture like so many farm equipment. I naturally like staying in on a Friday or Saturday down in the basement and drawing all night, but I'm a little, I don't know, half a year is enough.
Yeah.
I need to go outside or something. It's been a little intense, so I need a break. But I mean, there's not much I like more than making comic books. Whether or not I read them much anymore is beside the point. I love making these things. So
yeah. And Rafer, I know you just had a very successful Kickstarter that ended, I think, last month. So it's obviously a lot of stuff to keep you busy. Has it been going okay for you?
Yeah, I'm actually, I still have a day job, which is classified as essential for some reason. So I still have to, I'm forced to go outside, which I don't know. It's like crap in one hand, wish in the other. They're both pretty bad. I don't enjoy going out. It's very stressful. So, yeah, the Kickstarter was a very nice distraction from that. And it was, it funded fairly quickly, which was, I didn't want that added stress on top of everything. So it was nice, but actually being creative and actually being able to really focus on writing has been a challenge.
Yeah.
Still trying. I've got luckily I think I finished I wrote all of the current issue arc of Grumble back before the virus hit. So thank God, Mike. I'm sorry, man, because I know what happens in those issues, and they're not great to draw on the best day. So sorry.
a lot of stuff.
Okay.
A lot of stuff.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No.
I was going to say, talking about Grumble, Rafer and Mike, what were some of your artistic influences working on Grumble, kind of leading you up to this creation?
I mean, I've always said it's just an excuse to draw Howard the Duck and Hellblazer in one comic book. So,
Oh, nice.
I mean, those are the influences. I think the other stuff comes from, the reason why I asked Rafer to even be part of it is that he has such a outsider look on these. He's just so he can go out there, and I want it out there because I don't think I'm not the most creative person, and I think Rafer thinks deeper than I do, and I think it comes through in this stupid comic about a dog that talks.
Deeper down. It's
Deeper down.
Yeah. Yeah, I just again, like Howard the Duck, so I'm a big fan of Marvel comics from the 70s, like the Steve Gerber stuff, just where the entire Marvel staff was on drugs and hitting things right before deadline, so they didn't have a choice but to print whatever they turned in. So there's a lot of that. I just like writing comics that I like to read.
Yeah.
And I think Mike and I were talking about this the other day, I think Grumble right now is my favorite comic that I enjoy going back to read, and I do it. Nobody makes comics the way my favorite comics. I have favorite comics, but nobody makes my favorite comic but me, is how I look at it. And I'm lucky enough that Mike enjoys drawing the stuff that I put out on a page because he is perfect for actually taking the vision I have in my brain, somehow translating it from the script that I give him and recombining it back into literally what I saw on my brain mirror image. It's so weird.
And I know that between a lot of you, there's some Eisner Awards floating around. I think Gideon's got an Eisner Award. I know Eric has a couple of Eisner Awards. Eric, does that kind of make you feel, awards-wise, does it feel like, okay, people appreciate what I'm doing, or does it kind of in the grand scheme of things to you, or are you one of the people who it doesn't matter, this is the work and this is what you love doing?
I think anyone who says it doesn't matter is a liar. It feels good to be appreciated, even in the smallest form. And yes, there's a lot of politics that go on with awards and things like that, but to be recognized for your work in any format is a nice thing. Did it help my career? I don't know. I don't think that it actually affects your sales too terribly much, but I'm very proud of the fact that I'm an Eisner winner. And it goes into the whole, like, the moment, like I received my first Eisner from the hands of Will Eisner. It was the last year that he hosted, or the year before the last year. But that was really meaningful. And then, just to get an Eisner Award from Will Eisner. So yeah, it does mean a lot to me. But the tangible, business aspects of, did it help anything? Who's to say?
And Gideon, you said earlier you're new to comics, but you've got an Eisner Award under your belt. That's got to be a great feeling for you as well.
It was amazing. I mean, to have, like, it was the first full-length book that I made that wasn't like a self-published single issue thing. So it was amazing. It was a shock, and it was awesome. And I got to meet Dave Gibbons as a result, and he called me a youngster, which was funny. It was great. It also got me an adjunct teaching gig at there's that. As far as, like, it didn't make my book sell a ton of copies, but it certainly was great. Validation is great. Like, if you're a creative person and you spend all this time by yourself, I mean, I'm a pretty social person, actually, and it takes effort to hide myself away and do this stuff. I love it. I wouldn't want it any other way, but there are times when it's like, it's hard. And so, to anything that tells you that, hey, someone liked what you made, like, that's just awesome. I should also mention that Megaghost just got nominated for National Cartoonist Society Award, for a Reuben
Very
Award.
cool.
Yeah. Very deserved.
So, yeah, it's nice.
And Steve, I know you've got Fearless Dawn is crossing over with Hellboy coming up. That's got to be a fun thing to kind of play in someone else's sandbox, kind of see your creation alongside another great creation.
What? Yes, he was. No, I was. I know. I was. He showed up on my at the what do they call this? The Facebook. He comes in over there as a friend request. I said to my wife, Mike McNeil wants to be friends. And I said, boy, I better write him back, And it was nice. He saw this picture I did of Popeye, which was like this is kind of a weird lesson that I got. I didn't want to do this Popeye cover for Craig Yo. Craig Yo came by my table at a con and said, you want to do a Popeye cover? And I said, yeah, I love Popeye. How much it cost? And he said, nothing, because we sell like 14 copies of Popeye, And I said, I don't want to do that. I didn't even want to do the cover. But I was doodling, and it started coming out really good. And then I showed it to Craig Yo. I said, hey, here's an idea. I don't know. I didn't want to do it. And he said, oh, that's great. Finish it. But it sort of went, what do they call, it took off, it went viral a little bit, and like Bluto was punching down on Popeye, and I didn't put Bluto's other arm in there, so it goes viral. Of course, you got a couple of jerks going, hey, look, we didn't put in Bluto's other arm. And I'm all sensitive about it, like, shit, I should have put on his arm, But the composition wouldn't have worked the way the fist is coming down to smash Popeye, And I was like, but I felt bad about it. Like I made a mistake. And Mike Mignola didn't think it was a mistake. He's like, man, I saw that Popeye and I had to make friends with you over on the Facebook, And I said, holy smokes. And here's a job I didn't want to do. And then we met up. I got invited out to Italy, and he came by the table and he bought some stuff, and he was there with Art Adams telling Joe. They were talking about all these crazy stories. You get to hear these guys, and you could tell they were buddies like through the industry. So they got some kooky stories and stuff. And I just wanted to hear him talk about stories, but he said, well, let's work. I want to do something. You want to do something? Yeah. And then he brought up, we'd use the schematic. He goes, remember what happened with the Goon when Eric Powell, when the Hellboy went over there? And I said, yeah, that's great. And we handshaked on it and got to work, And it was a neat experience. Neat to try to cram them in there. You got to do it quick. Like cram them in. They kind of meet. Little thing fight. You're not going to get a whole lot of character development or nothing like that, but we got some pancake eating, we got some Nazi punching. It's a freaking good comic book. Yeah, it's like a popcorn movie. Thank you.
Pancake eating, Nazi punching. I'm sold right there. You had me.
99. And thank you, Eric. You took it to Eric.
And going back to Eric, it's got to be such a point of pride for you. You've got all these great creators working with you, and you've got some amazing titles from Albatross. What are you most proud about at this moment in your life when you kind of see what's going on with the creators you've got working with you, the company you've got going? Talk a little bit about what you're most proud of at the moment.
I'm sorry, my internet cut out for just a second. Could you repeat that, please?
Sure. No, yeah, that's fine. No, I was just saying it's kind of like with all these great creative people, we've got 6 of them here that you're working with. You've got a lot of great titles from Albatross. What at this very moment are you most proud of as far as where you are with things, where the company is with things?
I'm just proud of the.
Shucks.
That was going to be good. I can tell he's frozen. What about Gabe? Do we still?
You guys still hear me?
No, there you go. Now
you guys are like you guys are like cutting in and out on me. I don't know what's going on.
But I'm here. I turned off my camera to preserve bandwidth.
Okay. Well, at least we can hear you. That's good.
Yeah.
Do we have you back still, Eric? Is it?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Now you're good. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Just the overall volume of stuff that we have. I don't think there's a weak link. I think everything has merit, and I'm pretty proud of that. That we've been a little picky about what we've taken on, and all of the people who are bringing books to us are putting a lot of passion into it. Yeah. So it's fun just to work with these guys, and I think I've done pretty good about not bringing in jerks to work with. Everybody is pretty fun to work with, and that's awesome.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Yeah, it's been good being there too.
Yeah. And I mean, all of these guys in some way or another have also helped the company in small ways. I mean, it's like, we're publishing their books, but they also prop up Albatross, and it's been a really good feeling for me, for these guys to think that much of it.
How many submissions do you get, let's say, in a year, 2020 notwithstanding, because it's been a weird year, but do they mostly come through the mail? Do they find you on social media? Is it coming at conventions that you used to go to?
It's mostly conventions. We have been getting a lot of stuff over email since the shutdown, but we're not of a size that we can take on a lot of material. We're going to do, 2 to 5 books a month, and that's about all we're interested in, trying to tackle.
And I want to make sure, because we're about 36 minutes in, I want to make sure before we get to the point where we're wrapping up, I want to go around with everybody, and I want you to give out what you're working on now, what's coming out released. We mentioned a couple of things, and make sure you give social media context if people want to follow you. So we'll start with Eric.
Yeah, I'm working on Goon stuff right now. We've got the graphic novella Lords of Misery coming out in October, which is a Goon spinoff. I think people are going to dig that. We also have a 3-issue Hillbilly miniseries coming up. Nice. And you can go to thegoon.com or albatrossfunnybooks.com for all of our social media links.
And I'm going to go clockwise around my screen. So Rafer?
We're putting the finishing touches on the 3rd arc of Grumble, Memphis and Beyond the Infinite. Issue 3 is coming out shortly. I wish I had it right in front of me, but I don't. But it's gorgeous. It's looking great. And even just getting back to one of your early questions, I'm really appreciative for Albatross. Most companies honestly would have canceled this after about 5 issues. But thank you, Eric, for letting us tell the complete story that we wanted to tell. We got a little bit more bloated than I originally planned, but thank you. And that's the best thing. Going to Albatross changed the tone of Grumble for the better. I kind of pushed it a little bit more. Eddie was allowed to be a little bit more of an asshole in my mind. I was a little bit bigger and bolder and a little bit weirder. I don't think if it was an Image, if it was a Dark Horse, it just wouldn't have been the same book. And it was I'm just really grateful for Albatross for letting us do our thing naturally, whatever it was, this weird baby that we made. So this is great.
We'll pop over to Mike.
Yeah, I'm gonna reiterate what Rafer said. I feel like I've been spoiled lately as far as the terms and conditions in which I get to make things, and I get to make exactly what I want with exactly who I want lately. And you know, I'll take a job here and there for a corporation or a regular company, and I'm fine with that. But I feel like I can't go back to drawing other people's stuff for Spider-Man or not. I mean, I'd love to draw a Spider-Man. Don't get me wrong. But I don't know if that's my end goal anymore. I like making these things. I like making them for Albatross. Grumble was something that I was just sitting around in my studio telling people, hey, wouldn't it be funny if somebody switched bodies with a dog? And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, I'm going to make it anyway. And so I did. And, I got to collaborate with Rafer, who's become a friend of mine who I really like, and he's super good at what he does. And I get to work with one of my oldest, friends in comics. And I couldn't be happier about it. I wish, more people bought it, but that's the way everything is now.
That's the industry, I think.
Yeah. So, I couldn't be happier. As far as social media goes, I'm just Google Mike Norton. I mean, you're going to get me or the real estate guy and
the real estate guy. Yeah. And we'll take advantage of Gabe's expanded bandwidth, and we'll go right to Gabe.
Come on, Gabe.
Maybe.
Come on, man.
Is he there?
If everybody can hear me, give me a thumbs up.
Thumbs up, yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Am I? Can you? Okay. Oh boy, I think I'm on a weird delay here too. I'd like to reiterate what basically Mike and Rafer said before me. It's amazing being able to work with somebody, Eric and Andrea at Albatross, people like Eric and Andrea at Albatross, because they're so into the mission of all the creators. Like, we all have we share this same like quasi aesthetic and like a general approach to making comics. Like he doesn't think his book could be than Albatross, and I don't think Mega Ghost would. If Gideon and I weren't working with Eric and Andrea.
All right,
interstitial things we did for the Mega Ghost trade. And I wanted to say, like, Eric totally blew us away with these design the trade that really just he got what we were doing
And
all and just blew it out the water. It was amazing.
And we'll move to Gideon.
You guys can't hear me see me shaking my head.
Well, since Gabe so eloquently covered Mega Ghost, and I totally agree with what everyone else has said. I'll step out across a second. Oops. And say that I have a book coming out called What's It? Comes out just in a couple of weeks from Heavy Metal Virus. It's my own book that I've been working on for about 12 years. In fact, it was the first idea I had when I said, "Oh, I think I want to go back to my first love, which is comics." So I'm excited that that's coming out again from Heavy Metal Virus, and you can find me at Gideon Kendall. That's the benefit of having a weird name. I'm easy to find. So.
And moving to Brett.
I'm finishing up the first issue of King Tank Girl, and basically the same as everybody else. I'm just really happy to be working with Eric and Andrea, and I've been doing like the Tank Girl books with Alan for a little over 5 years now. Like that's been my main gig, and we've been working with other publishers, and I did a run on the Goon with Eric, and I was just like, this is the guy I want to work with. So when Alan was looking for a new publisher after the last series, I suggested them, and he thought it seemed like a good idea, and I couldn't be any happier to be.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we wouldn't be doing Tank Girl if it wasn't for Brett. I think Brett definitely sold Alan on the concept, and then Alan came to us. So,
well, it feels great to be working with people that appreciate what you do and what you're trying to do, whereas at another publisher you're often just like a cog in the machine churning out stuff, and it feels much more like art doing it with you guys. So
it's also nice to know that if you tell someone, the publisher that's putting out your book, it doesn't matter what book they pick up. Like if they, they're not going to pick up another book and go like, ugh. They're like, because everything looks good, everything's good, and that's important.
That's definitely why we are keeping the publishing line smaller, because I don't want to put out a book that I'm not, satisfied with. And I think everything that Albatross has done, there's something there that has some level of merit to it, So I don't think I want people to be able to buy all of our titles and feel like they're getting their money's worth.
Yeah.
And Steve, last but not least.
Thank you, James. We're going to have a one shot coming on. Again, it's great to work with Eric and all these guys. Fearless Dawn one shot, and old number 7 is coming back for a team up. So I've been taking the time to work on that. It's nice. There's going to be I'm from New Jersey. We got these cryptoids that Jersey Devil is going to be coming into the story. So they're kind of on the trail and trying to find him. And I like that cryptozoology and stuff like that. So it's just going to be some fun popcorn, bubblegum kind of comics that we're doing on over here. And can't wait to see it out there and see you guys and stuff out there too. I guess, just Google me up, stevemannion.com, and there I'll be over there on the internet.
We just had a comment come in that says Comic Core that said the Jersey Devils are real.
Yes. Oh, there. That's what they say.
I know Gabe's having trouble with his connection, but he did say he's in the comment chat. I'll sum it up. Hoping to convince Eric and Andrea to do more Mega Ghost for next Halloween, crossing fingers and performing occult rituals. So maybe the occult rituals that are infringing on his bandwidth right now, for all I know. I'm not sure.
That's what it is.
But like I said, I was very impressed when I looked over all your guys' stuff. Your websites are gorgeous. There's a lot of great work, and I will cop to the fact that I'm normally more of the big 2 DC and Marvel stuff, but the stuff I've looked at from you guys, I'm now an Albatross fan. I'm going to go pick up some Hillbilly and some Goon, and I can't wait to see Tank Girl, obviously. But you guys are all just fantastic, creative people. And it's got to be such, like I said in the original question to Eric, it's a great feeling to know that you've got such a great group of people you're working with on a daily basis.
Yeah, I mean, these guys are making us look good. So that's it makes it easy on us, you know. We're just lucky enough to get these guys to want to work with us. As a fledgling publisher, it's a big deal for us. Yeah.
And we just had a comment pop up that says Pastime Comics and Gifts said they're very excited here in Asheville, which I assume Asheville, North Carolina. I'm assuming because I'm not geographically challenged, but I'm pretty sure. But yeah, they're very excited to hear from you guys and talk to you all. And
they're a great shop.
So is there, like, I'm not sure where all you guys are at geographically. Do you guys have your local comic book stores you want to give a quick shout out to? We'll start at the other end with Steve.
I tell you, Pastimes is going to be the one that I would give the shout out for. They were in Asheville about 20, 30 minutes away or so.
And we just had another comment from Una that says Fearless Dawn Meets Hellboy comes out September 16th. So we'll make sure to plug that as well. And Brett, local comic book store shout out?
Sadly, they've all gone under around where I live, so I have to get everything online these days.
And how about Gideon?
Yeah.
Anyone Comics in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. Great store that does amazing community stuff too. They turned their whole basement into a little workshop area where they have classes for little kids. It's just the best. It's the best store. I hope their rent doesn't go up. Maybe COVID will actually enable them to stay in business. But they're great. Anyone Comics. If you're in Brooklyn, that's the place to go.
And I know Gabe said More Fun Comics in New Orleans. New Orleans, my favorite continental city in the U.S. I love New Orleans. I've been to More Fun Comics, so I will concur with Gabe that that is a fantastic store. Mike, do you have a local comic book store you're going to shout out to?
Sure. I mean, I'm in Chicago, so we have an embarrassment of riches up here as far as stores go. But I will always plug my friend Patrick's store, Challengers Comics and Conversation. It's they do everything they can to make people get what they want, and if you don't know what you want, they'll figure out what it is. They're kind of like your comic books Bengali. You know, they're awesome, and I'm happy to call them friends.
And Rafer Roberts, local comic book store shout out.
I'm in Maryland. My pull box is down in Baltimore at Amazing Spiral, which is a really very nice store. But I also like shopping Third Eye. Third Eye Comics is a fairly big Maryland-based store with a couple of branches, and they were a very early supporter of Grumble and Albatross. I like them a lot. And down in DC, when I'm down there, I like Phantom Comics, just out of DuPont Circle, is a really, really nice store. Which I've done a lot of signings there too, and so I don't know why they keep letting me come back, but they do, and I like them for it.
And back to Eric, I'll say local comic book store shout out, and this is your show, man. So I'll let you wrap it up with some final words.
Okay. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of comic shops in Nashville, but Rick's Comic City is the closest one to me. I don't get out there as much as I would like, but it's a good shop. I guess to wrap it up, I want to thank you for having us and commentating. And I want to thank all these guys for showing up and doing this. And yeah.
And we will make sure Mainframe Comic Con, thank you very much. There's more shows coming out throughout the weekend. And we want to make sure, once again, the website, shop.albatrossfunnybooks.com. You can get a selection of the titles there, see the upcoming stuff. Keep up with all these guys. Follow me on Twitter at Geek2Me Radio. I'll be putting out a link to all of your social media for everybody. So Eric Powell, Rafer Roberts, Mike Norton, Gabe Surya, Gideon Kendall, Brett Parson, and Steve Mann. And this has been a pleasure for me to talk to you. I'm glad to know you all. Thanks very much, and I'll hope to talk to you again very soon.
Thank you. Thank you.
And make sure you check out the Hero Initiative. Make sure you give generously to them because it's helping a lot of great people, especially in a time like this. HeroInitiative.org, I believe, is the website, and there are links throughout the Mainframe Comic Con panel. So thanks, guys.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, gang, we are back in Hall C. Thank you very much, James, for hosting that fantastic panel. Eric Powell and the Albatross Funny Books family. Some fantastic books coming out from them. Coming up next, we've got our Hollywood IP Connection comics panel. A fantastic group coming in to talk about Hollywood IP. We're going to get those folks loaded into the stream and start that up very shortly. So bear with us for just a moment. Troy, you're muted. I don't have any audio from you, my friend. Nope.
How about now?
How about now? Now's great, man. I'll see
Okay.
you on the other side of things.
There you go. I swear to God, guys, this is not my first time doing this. But anyway, we're going to start over again. What's up, Mainframe Comic Con? I am Troy Jeffrey Allen. I come to you courtesy of previews.com. If you're not familiar yet, we'll definitely get into that. But first, I want to introduce my guest because this is Hollywood and comics, the IP connection. So up first, let me introduce Mr. Rylan Grant. Where you at, Rylan? There he is.
Howdy. How you doing?
Doing all right. Rylan's done a bunch of books for Action Lab, of course, Action Lab Danger Zone in particular, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in a second. Also up next, Zach Kaplan. Where you at, Zach?
What up? Hey.
What's up, man? How's it going? Zach,
how are you guys doing?
Zach has the book called Eclipse and a bunch of other titles as well. And we're going to get into that as well. Then we have David Pepos.
Hey, how you doing?
What's up, Dave? Dave, I don't know if you know this. I have interviewed you before, but it was a written interview, so it's nice actually meeting you.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate all your support, and I'm so glad that we finally get to chat live. Not one-on-one, one on five.
105. There you go. Dave, of course, has done Spencer. You're outnumbered. I am outnumbered. Here you go. But David, of course, has done Spencer and Locke. And I know like a lot of people are a fan of that. So definitely we'll talk about that some more. And finally, David Avalon of Betty Page and Zorro fame.
Hello, all.
What's up, David? How's it going?
It's hot.
Yeah, hot. I can understand that. I can respect that. I respect that. So yeah, guys, thank you very much for joining me. I appreciate you doing this with me. We had a short conversation before, so I was just going to dive right into it and give you like your first question, and we'll just go around the room. We'll start with Rylan, then we'll go to Zach, and then we'll go to David, and then we'll end off with David. So there you go, David Pepos.
No confusion there.
There you go. You're the main event. So we've all heard. There you go. I like it. You're the main event, David. Do it. So we've all heard the criticisms of creators treating comics as Hollywood pitches, right? And I mean, but there is a reality here, and so I want to bust some myths right now because I kind of feel like a lot of times when creators talk about these things, it's kind of like a damned if you do, damned if you don't. You're either Frank Miller on one end or you're Mark Miller on the other end, I guess, right? Like you're either doing great and it's fine or you're a sellout, right? I mean, that's kind of how these things kind of go. This is the framing that people like to put these things in. So why, as an indie creator, is it important for you to make the Hollywood IP connection to your comic? And I'm going to start with you, Rylan. You go first.
Yeah, and I guess I'm coming at this from an interesting angle because I have for the last 15 years made my living. My day job is writing movies and TV shows. So I've written for J.J. Abrams and Ridley Scott and Justin Lin and Luc Besson and John Woo, a bunch of losers like that. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I sort of started out in Hollywood, so if anything, I face almost daily in the comics business. I mean, it almost doesn't pay for me to introduce myself as a screenwriter first. You would think that someone who has been paid, to write big blockbuster movies for 15 years, like that would be somebody that you'd want to work with in the comic business. But there is this. I don't know what you want to call it, a stigma or a prejudice or something like that. All I'm doing with my comics is basically taking failed movies and turning them into to comics. But we talked about this a little bit in our chat conversation. I think that it's an attitude that is very much 15 years out of date. I mean, the two businesses are so hopelessly interconnected right now. Yeah. Almost impossible to tell where one begins and one ends. I think, I can only speak from my perspective or our perspective as writers. I think that I realized very soon into my screenwriting career that I was not going to survive only being a screenwriter. That I had to become a writer, plain and simple, and just simply tell stories. And it's not just that, it's not just that your comic or your short story can become a movie. It's vice versa and backwards and forwards. I think that, opportunities are very slim right now. Particularly Hollywood's making about a third as many movies as they were even 5 years ago.
Right.
And so, you can sit here and you can sit here and I'm a storyteller. That's what I get paid to do.
Mhm.
And so when so few movies get made, I am not going to survive only writing spec screenplays. So I had to branch out. And so without turning this into a marathon, here's my quick story. So about 15 years ago, I start getting paid to write screenplays. And for 2 or 3 years, it was sort of like the salad days. It was a buffet. Like you wrote a spec script and you took it out, and if it was good, you got paid a bunch of money for it, and then you moved on to the next one. Well, about 3 years in, that all dried up. The financial crisis hit, the writer strike hit around the same time. Suddenly, like, Hollywood completely remakes the way they do movies, the way they do business, and you couldn't sell a spec script or a pitch to save your life. And then we enter this age of IP where everything had to be based on something in Hollywood, whether it's a book, a video game, a short story. And so, I had a million stories I wanted to tell. I knew I couldn't sell them as movies, and so I started to sort of branch out into other things. And so I started doing fiction, and fiction was a love of mine. And so I had an opportunity to get into a short story collection, and I wrote this short story that based on this idea that I probably 2 years before would have made a movie, but it was a story I wanted to tell. I told it as a short story, and overnight in Hollywood we had a bidding war. We had Justin Lin on one side coming off Fast 6, which was the largest opening in Universal summer history, might still be. And we had Brett Ratner and Robert De Niro on the other side. And we had a bunch of other people bidding, Tyler Perry, and so they, my reps kind of thought that was a fluke. I knew it wasn't, and I set out to do it again. And so I did it. I did it 5 more times with short stories, and I've done it twice with comics since then. And so, I don't think I'm selling out. I don't think I'm taking failed movie ideas and turning them into comics or anything right now. What I'm doing is I need to tell stories, and I get paid to write stories. And I'm a writer and not a screenwriter or a comic writer or anything like that. Everything has a medium that's good for it. Or if you choose comics or you choose a short story, you're going to tell a story a different way. And if the byproduct is then Hollywood takes notice and pays you a bunch of money to turn it into a movie for Robert De Niro, then more power to us, because a lot of times it's the only time we get paid as comic writers. When Hollywood comes knocking.
That's absolutely real, and I totally get that. What about you, Zach? Do you just have to tell stories? That's all there is to it?
Yeah. I mean, look, haters are going to hate, and I think that the easiest way to silence those haters is to write a good comic book. And if you write a good comic book, and it stands on its own, if you use the medium of comics or graphic novels and you tell something that people get excited about in that medium, then that's all that you need to do. And the other reality is there are opportunities in film and TV adaptation. And anyone who says that you shouldn't be aware or educated on how to take advantage of those opportunities, it's just not being fair. I mean, what if we said the same thing about retailer outreach or social media interaction with fans? How dare you interact with your fans on social media? You're such a sellout. You should be in the cave, not doing anything. I mean, no, you should know how to interact with fans on social media. You should know how to send your advanced previews to retailers so they can pre-order more. You should know about as much as you can about the business of storytelling in all mediums so that you can propel stories that you love that are great stories. And so, you tell good stories and you educate yourself. And that's what we're here to do today, is to everyone listening, is to help them learn more about this process so they can, if they are on the fringe or right in the middle, they know more, the more you know.
Right. No, so David, what about you? Any myth busting you want to do here? Like, why is the IP Hollywood comic connection important for you? Avalon.
I think that you, Pecos. Oh no, me. I don't. Yeah. I can't tell which direction we're going.
Sorry, David Avalon. Sorry.
We'll go alphabetical. It's fine.
The like Ryland, actually, I come from the film industry, and I'm still in it. I've never really left. If you go to my IMDb page, you'll see what a chaotic thing my career has been. I've done a little bit of everything. including writing, including directing, including producing, all that kind of thing. First time I used Kickstarter was to produce a movie about 5-6 years ago. But about 5 years ago, I got offered an opportunity to write comic books, and for a small company, for Dynamite, and I had more creative freedom there than I have ever had in the motion picture industry, and that was a huge, huge attraction for me. First time I handed in a script to Dynamite, I didn't hear back for a couple of days. And being from the film industry, I'm like, okay, they hate it. I'm going to get a ton of notes. This is going to suck. And I contacted another colleague who works with Dynamite, and they were like, no, man, you're done. They don't have anything more to say to you. This is going to artists now. Dynamite doesn't have time to give you notes on this shit. You're done. What? So that's been wild. I mean, and it's been 5 years of that. And the thing about the pipeline flowing in various directions, the thing that we wrote Drawing Blood, me and Kevin Eastman, created it. He wanted to make a movie. I said, this sounds more like a prestige TV show because it's too big a story, and wrote it as a pilot script. We had some frustrations getting that off the ground, and Kevin was like, we're comic book guys. Let's make a comic book. And the idea wasn't let's make a comic book because we want to sell it as a TV show, though of course we do. It's a great comic book. And because of having been through that process, I get the question a lot from people, should I make my unsold screenplay into a graphic novel? And I say, if you're making a pamphlet to hand executives, do not do that. Do not spend 6 months of your life and a ton of money on a thing you don't love. That's just a brochure for a non-existent thing. Love your comic book. Be into it as a comic book. Be excited about it as a comic book.
100% agree, yeah.
And then what happens to it. And the irony for me is I couldn't get arrested as a studio writer of big budget action things. But once I was a comic book writer, I got invited to be on the development team for the new Red Sonja movie. Like, no one wanted to hear from me about writing a big budget Hollywood blockbuster ever. But then Joey Soloway, who's an old buddy of mine, was like, I need comic book people. You're comic book people, right? And so, years of trying to get crashed through the gates didn't do anything for me. Writing, pretty obscure comics for a pretty small publisher got me a job where I was going through the gates at Paramount every day.
Nice. There you go.
So
hey,
I couldn't.
Whichever way works.
Exactly.
Whichever way works. What about you, David Pepos? What's your IP comic book Hollywood connection, and why is it important to you?
For me, it's funny. I mean, I write comics because I've been a diehard comics fan for as long as I can remember, and I spent a long time in the trenches doing other things related to comics. I was a DC Comics intern. I wrote reviews at Newsarama for like over a decade. And so I for me, it's piggybacking on a lot of what Zach was talking about, where for me, when I first wrote my first book, Spencer and Locke, for those who don't know it, the high concept is what if Calvin and Hobbes grew up in Sin City? I wrote that. It was for comics fans by comics fans. And I for sure thought there was no way that there would be any sort of multimedia interest in this. I was just like, it's too comic centric. Nobody's going to want it. And then we got optioned before the third issue came out. So I think what Zach was talking about, for me, the multimedia stuff doesn't really come to the equation. It's always just, do I love this book enough that I can't let it go? That I would literally beg, borrow, and steal to get this thing put out of spite. And it's kind of, if the comic reads that way, that you feel, you've left it all in the field, you've swung as hard as you can on it. I think the quality speaks for itself, and I think the enthusiasm and the passion speaks for itself, and Hollywood tends to respond to that. Now, the other thing that I would mention is, I've been optioned 3 times, and the thing that always breaks my heart is like I'm only really allowed to publicly talk about one of them. But the thing that I think a lot of people shouldn't discount is that so much of this is like luck and happenstance. The way that Spencer and Locke got optioned was I happened to share a local comic book shop with a producer, and Mike Wellman, who was then running the Comic Bug, and now he's at Atomic Basement out down in Long Beach. He really kind of took me under his wing when before we even announced the book. I had given him a copy saying, "Hey, I'm a first-time creator," and Mike was so invested in my development as a creator that when our producer walked in, he was like, "Hey, have you checked out this book? It's coming out this week. It's really good." And that kind of got the ball rolling. Like it's so much about getting the material out there in a way that you feel ultra confident about it. And then you'd be shocked at just kind of the random coincidences that happen that wind up getting something into somebody's hands.
Right. No, actually, I really like that because I'm sure if we go, David talked a little bit about how he got, Ryland talked a little bit about how he got access to Hollywood, but like everybody here probably has a different story. There's no one route to get there. And so that kind of kills this idea of, oh, if I make a comic, somehow I'm going to get, optioned. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's so many different avenues. So, David, you already talked about this a little bit, so I'm gonna actually bring this up to everybody else in the room. Is there a way or a dishonest approach to making comics with the intention of going to Hollywood? Like, is there like a certain thing that you could pinpoint that you're like, yeah, that doesn't, you don't have to call anybody out, of course, but there's a certain thing that you feel like, I'm sure as a fan, if I read it, I would be like, oh, they're just trying to get a screenplay out of this. You know what I mean? Ryland, whoever wants to go first, and we'll just go from there.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, certainly nobody in this, certainly nobody on this panel. I think, Avalone hit it right on the head where it's like, and Peppo sort of echoed it where, I have seen, I mean, I know people and I've sat next to them at cons that were screenwriters and they just, it sort of reeks of, I didn't even write a comic script. I just took my screenplay and I think those are the people that kind of give the rest of us a bad name. I mean, I think, it's not so much, I don't know, it's so blatantly obvious when they've done that. I mean, I think the question is more about like, okay, well, what shows that you didn't do that? I mean, I think that, we all sort of echoed it where it's like, okay, well, you have a story that you need to tell. And the beauty is like, there are a dozen different mediums in which you can tell that story, right? If you're telling a big sci-fi story like Zach, Hollywood makes 2 of those a year, and they cost $250 million to make now. So if Zach waited for
are you saying I'm not picking the most easily sellable?
I think it's wonderful. I'm just saying, like, because I do a similar thing. If you waited for Hollywood to make your movie or to make your TV series, it'd probably never happen. But you're a comics guy, and so you tell it in a different medium, and you told it in a way in which you should tell a story in that medium. And I think that that's very important. Is like not every story can be a comic book. Not every story can be a short story. Not every story can be a movie. When I did my first two books, Aberrant and Banjax, are superhero stories. I almost told my Captain America story with Aberrant. I almost told my sort of Batman story with Banjax, and that's an oversimplification. But they were stories that really, like, Hollywood never would have been interested in them at all. And so I was telling, these were commentaries on 30 plus years of me reading comic books and what I wanted to see in comic books and what I loved about comic books. And now I'm branching off and I'm doing my bigger sci-fi stories and I'm doing my crime stories and all of that. But they were stories that could only be told there. And the thing that really struck me about comics was, when I started comics, my movie career had gotten very dull. I had at that point been writing professionally in Hollywood for about a dozen years. And I got really tired of it. I mean, again, Hollywood started making fewer and fewer movies. Basically, if you look at it, they only make 5 different kinds of movies right now. You can what Hollywood does now, you can fit on a postage stamp, right? And they want all of those movies written a certain way. And over 12 years, I got really good at kind of mailing those things in. I could write them in my sleep. They bought my house, and so And so when I decided I was going to do comic books, I could have mailed in more kind of Hollywood type stories. But there's so much more that you can do in the comics medium. And I just really embraced it. And so when I sat down to write comics, I decided that I was never going to tell a straightforward story. All of the things that I really loved about comics that were like wholly possible in comics, playing with time, narrative structures, unreliable narrators, playing with narration in a very interesting way, all sorts of experimental elements. I just doubled down on all that stuff. And, you know, it sort of brought me back to life as a writer. Like, I loved writing again because every day was a surprise. Every issue I sat down and it's like, okay, well, this is a standard story where the good guy has to go and save someone who's in trouble from the bad guy. You know, again, I could have wrote the formulaic version of that, but no, I'm going to twist it and turn it, and it's going to be like a guy is dying on a table and he's imagining himself on an episode of Jeopardy, and the whole story is framed like via the categories and stuff like that. I let loose, man, and I think it was good. And the beauty now is that I think that all of that playing in comics is starting to sort of inform my movie and TV writing in a very interesting way, and I'm taking all these chances now. And it's been embraced. So
yeah, no, absolutely. Like anybody else,
I think to
jump
get
in on
to
that,
what
like,
you
yeah,
were talking about, like what are the dead giveaways? Coming from film writing, like when I got my first comic book assignment, I took it super seriously. I reread the Scott McCloud. I read up. I looked at people's scripts. I was like, you know, I had no idea the page turn thing. The importance, the dramatic importance of the page turn is huge. And when a screenwriter writes a comic book, and especially when they're adapting their own screenplay, which I had to do on Drawing Blood, you can see that it's not using the language of comic books. When I started writing comics, the artist I've worked with the most, David Costa, pointed out to me that I was using a very cinematic style in the sense that there was dialogue and there was sound effects. I did no captions. I did no thought balloons, nothing like that. And he said, let comics be comics, man. Let you know, use captions, use voiceover, use the tools of comics, and that was really freeing to me. And I think when you see a comic book that's just been adapted from a screenplay, it doesn't have page turns.
Yeah,
It doesn't use the language of comic books. It doesn't use the gutters. It doesn't know how to use an artist as anything but a cinematographer.
Right. Yeah.
And it doesn't. You don't look at it as what's interesting about a page in and of itself, and how does a page tell a story, and what can you see out of the right hand peripheral vision on the coming page versus the great surprise of the page turn.
No, absolutely. It's a dramatic device.
I was 49 years old when I started writing comic books, and boy, the best advice I can give anyone is pick up a new art form in midlife, because I really did feel like a kid again in film school, because like there's a whole new set of tools.
Yeah, right.
The form is so completely different, because growing up wanting to be a filmmaker, I had watched films from a very, you know, and this didn't interfere with my enjoyment of them, but I was conscious of cinematography, of editing, of acting, of all those choices. But I read comic books my whole life in a completely uncritical, no idea about what the form is like. And so when I got the first assignment, I literally took Watchmen down, and this is going to sound like I'm an idiot, but I took Watchmen off the shelf. 9-panel grids, crazy. You know, took New Frontier down. 3-panel pages, all CinemaScope. Crazy. You know, just like, oh, here's all of the, like I had read all that stuff without knowing how I was being manipulated by the form itself.
Right,
and it's now 1,000 times richer of an experience for me.
I love that discovery. No, absolutely. Zach, what about you? Did you any dead giveaways or any wrong ways to attack this?
I think it's based on, once the book is written, what the creator is doing with the book. If the creator is selling the book to shops and fans and comic readers, then it was a comic book meant to be a comic book. If someone gets a table at a convention, I mean, first off, that is something. But then if they're just sitting there and not doing anything and not trying to get people to buy their book, if they're not outreaching, if they're not sharing their passion for the comic, if the comic has been made so they can email it to producers and they're not doing that creator work, that's the dead giveaway for me. But I think that's the thing. Most of the time you'll find that creators are actually quite excited to promote their comic. So if you see a comic creator promoting their comic, they're probably excited about the comic.
David, you seem to be co-signing that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like sometimes I feel like I'm a little bit of the outlier, I think, on the panel, just because I don't have really that screenwriting background, that filmmaking background. I've worked in television and film, but more on like the admin support side of things. You know, I worked as an editor at CBS. I worked as a lit assistant, you know, here in Hollywood. But for me, it's always been I've comics. I know I'm a comics person first and foremost. And so for me, the thing that kind of gets my spider sense tingling is anytime that I see somebody where I'm like, oh, that's a tourist. Where you know, where it's somebody who to kind of piggyback off what Zach was saying, they see comics as their stepping stone to something else. And I can't tell you how many people I've had reach out to me personally out here in LA who have said, oh, hey, I've got a script and I can't sell it. And I was thinking about making it into a comic. And I was like, well, do you have $10,000 and 9 months to burn? And that usually ends the lunch meeting pretty quick. Because yeah, the thing that there's nothing that burns me more as a comics creator than somebody thinking that this is easy. I love comics. This is my calling. This is my dream job. It's also the hardest thing I've ever done. I've said I spent 10 years writing reviews. I thought I knew everything there was to know, and it was barely enough information to get me across the finish line for my first book.
Yeah, I love telling people in that first meeting that a page costs between $150 to $400.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's
and just watching their mouths drop. I'm like, well, what do you think? You know, what is it to shoot 5 minutes of a movie?
Right. Yeah. Way more.
Man, like,
you know,
so be lucky it's only $350.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, I've seen, it's not often, thank goodness, but yeah, it's like I definitely see people where it's this very cynical kind of, I have the comic, but the comic is really just the calling card for something else. And some of it, look, you can see just the execution. You can tell, like, if somebody's put their heart and soul into it, and hearing a creator talk about it, I think is, you know, really crucial to me. And I think that's where, like, you know, doing your publicity runs is really important, because you're able to sort of say, hey, this is sort of, I consider it the last gasp of having the author's intention on there before it's in the reader's hands, and then your opinion doesn't matter anymore. It's the death of the author. And so, yeah, I feel like, you know, people who respect the medium and respect the business and respect the industry and respect their fellow creators, you know, I never begrudge anybody their sense of hustle. But for people who it's very clear that they think that they're slumming it down here so they can get a movie deal.
Troy, can I
yeah, what's up, Zach?
The opposite of all of this. The opposite of all of this is that when we say that comic creators have to be so auteur that they are married only to the comic craft. Now, none of us, I mean, everything we're supposed to, but this is the reverse, where it gets into a problem for comic creators when IP options and IP comes knocking. When you get that opportunity and you go, well, I'm not supposed to want this opportunity, and so I'm going to let this opportunity happen completely.
Yeah, don't do that.
And I'm going to divorce myself from this opportunity. I'm going to let it go without my, without any
without an input.
Without any input, without creating a creative involvement. I'm going to let them take my the comic, the story that I birthed, and I'm going to remove myself because I'm not supposed to be involved in that process in any way. This is the flip side, where the stigma of Hollywood being dirty for comic creators ends up creating bad adaptations or hurting the comic creator in the process, because the comic creator should be part of that adaptation process. And that happens early on in the option process, in the negotiation, saying, I'm not giving my material to someone unless we have a shared vision. And so I think what's interesting to start on the stigma is then to say how the stigma inverts all this onto comic creators who are genuinely trying to make good comics, and then they go out there and they fall into all these traps that hurt them and hurt their material.
Zach's gonna be really tired of me saying I agree this whole panel. But I feel like, I mean, he's dead on in the fact that, like, if you're a comics creator, nobody's gonna love your baby the way that you love your baby.
Right, of course.
And while I understand that there's something to be said of, like, the comics is the comic, the TV show is the TV show, the movie is the movie, and each medium's got its own, like, tools and limitations. But I think that, yeah, absolutely, if you've put in the work to sort of to make this book, and you absolutely owe it to yourself to be your own best advocate. And if you feel bad about being your own best advocate, do it for your collaborators. Do it for your team. I feel like I'm naturally a pretty shy person. You wouldn't know it from me on this panel, but it's just because I feel like my artists are really quiet, introverted people. And if I didn't talk them up and I didn't talk a lot, then no one would know about all the blood, sweat, and tears they put into these books.
Or David, the fans. I mean, you've got Spencer and Mark fans who took your baby and propped it up to become an ongoing hit. And so they're the ones you made the comic for. They responded with passion and love. And so all the more important to say, hey, if this goes and it's adapted, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that it stays
done right
to our experience.
Yeah. Because anything less, it's just a waste of your time as a creator. It's a waste of readers' time and their money. And, at the end of the day, we just want to tell good stories. And I can't tell you how many adaptations there have been out there that people think they're smarter than the source material.
Right.
And, so why not be an advocate for your own work and your audience and your team?
I have two other dead giveaways that have occurred to me about Tourist. One of them is, you talk to the guy about the book sitting next to him on his table. He has no ideas for there's no second book. There's no seventh. Like, I did this as my leave behind for the meeting.
Right.
The executives to all take home. And you say, oh, what happens in the next volume? And they're like, it sells. And then I never have to do this again. Like that, they have no, I could write 300 issues of Drawing Blood, whether it's a TV show or not. It's they're characters I care about, and I want to tell their stories as long as I possibly can. So one way to spot the tourist is you say, what are you working on for volume 2? And they're like, volume 2? I don't want to make more fun comic book. And I mean, they never say that. And the other dead giveaway, and I think this one is even more obvious, is they have no interest in the community.
Yes.
They go to their panel, maybe, but they're not in anybody else's panels. They're not at the meet and greets. They're not drinking with you at the Hilton Bayfront in San Diego. They're at whatever party their agent is throwing. And it's that's sort of the first thing I learned is it's a community, and it's a great community, and it's a friendly community. God knows there are all summer we've been hearing about the bad actors, and they're but I've met some incredibly fine people, and if you come in with an open heart, you can meet great people and new collaborators and all that.
That's right.
So let me ask you guys, you brought up some great points, and actually one of them was just about, it's kind of in a way safeguarding yourself from exploitation. So I kind of think that's important for any creative person. Like, is there any advice that you guys can give? And I'll start with, whoever wants to go first, and then I'll just start from there.
How to safeguard yourself from exploitation in the comics to Hollywood.
Right.
I'll say, I think one of the things I've learned through my experience is that even though you are potentially in the beginning a small, powerless individual, because big entities can come in and they can throw their weight around, and you kind of in a way want that because it's not going to get made unless you get big entities like a big producer and a big studio and big people in. But you ultimately get to pick who you collaborate with. And one of, I think, the most common misconceptions out there is a big name alone will get your project made. This is not true. What will get your project made is creating a team of collaborators that all have the same vision. And that vision will come from you in the very beginning. So you've made a comic book. You're at the convention. Someone says, I'm a producer. You say, yeah, sure. You say, no, I'm a producer with so-and-so. And you go, oh, wow. And they say, and we want to buy your comic and turn it into a big TV show. We're going to take it to Netflix in 2 weeks. And you say, wow. And you say, you have to say, hold it. Wait a minute. I need to tell you my vision, and I need to trust that you share that vision, because if you don't share that vision, this is not going to work. And you have to now look. Sometimes you just have to take a flyer and say, this is not the one that I get to protect. I mean, everyone needs to take a payday or build the stepping stones. But I actually, in my heart of hearts, believe that the ones that go the fastest, that feel the truest, the most authentic, are the ones where the team that's coming around that project is all sharing the same vision and the most passionate about it. And that starts with you as the creator when you're giving away your comments.
For me,
go for it, David.
I was just going to say, for me, the biggest learning curve I had, I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in St. Louis, and then I went to the East Coast, and, I've only been in LA for 4 or 5 years. And the biggest learning curve for me, look, comics, it's very binary. You've got the pitch, they pick it up or they don't. And that's it. The project either happens or it doesn't.
All right.
Hollywood, there's like so many different steps of the way there. You can get paid for many of these steps. You get optioned, and then, sometimes the option doesn't go anywhere, or you can get people attached to the project and it might not go anywhere. I know working screenwriters who, they live very well. They have houses and families, and it's not through work that's ever been produced. It's just people buy the scripts, and then that's kind of what happens.
All right.
And I can imagine a lot of comics creators, because I was one of them, feeling like all this pressure of saying, oh man, like, something's gotten optioned, if this thing doesn't make it across the finish line, I'm going to die. And hopefully not to talk out of school, when we first got optioned with Spencer and Locke, I reached out to Anthony Johnson, who he wrote Atomic Blonde. And I kind of asked him, just being like, hey, do you have any advice for this? And he was like, no, man, you don't really have that much control. Like, he said, I've been optioned many times, and this is the first thing that sort of made it across the finish line. And, so I think that surrendering of the control a little bit, like, I do think, however, having advocates to help is very important. I think, getting representation that you trust, I think is really important. The team that I've worked with has been really helpful in terms of navigating deals that I've made, because
there are reps that you can trust.
Well, or at least reps you feel good about, and that sort of share that enthusiasm for your work. Because there's going to be a lot of, ultimately, no matter how much you know about the wheeling and dealing, you're the creator. Ultimately, you should be focusing on being the best creator and hype man and, and sort of project manager you can be. That's the whole reason you get reps, is that they can sort of do that work, that ancillary work of trying to sell this to, for film or television, and negotiating the contracts. And I think having somebody in your corner, you don't have to do it all yourself. And I think that's a very important thing that a lot of aspiring comics creators, they just wouldn't know about.
And to Zach's point earlier, like, one of the advocates you need are your fans, right? I mean, that's a big part of it. I think we're seeing this kind of right now with Avatar: The Last Airbender. It kind of seems like the creators are like not interested anymore, and who knows? Maybe the fans will make enough of a stink that it'll shift the whole production. Who knows?
To that point, also, I mean, I'm very lucky to have a collaborator in Kevin Eastman, who created something that's was worth $1 billion, and he sold it off years and years and years ago. But the most important thing he's taught me is you can say no.
Yeah.
The power you have is the power to say, I don't like this. I don't like the director you chose. I don't like, and the first meeting I had with the reps that are promoting Drawing Blood as a TV series, I said, you have to remember that Kevin has never had to say yes to a deal from anyone. since 1984.
True.
So,
right.
you know, they sent us a list of producers that might be interested in the show, and one of them was Mark Wahlberg, and I said, not in a million years. Next. And I don't want to even be in the same room with that cat, you know. And I said, and that's what we're going to be like, man. And if that's what stands between me and owning a pool, I'm okay with that.
That's right. That's the attitude you have to have. And unfortunately, there are too many people out there who say you don't have any control, so you can't do anything about it.
Sure.
And that is a very toxic idea.
Yeah.
You may not be able to do anything about it, but you should do everything you can in the moment.
Yes.
And if that means that you sit up and you say, hey, you know what? I really don't like this. I really don't like this. This is
Walk away.
Don't be afraid of being the difficult creator. You're there to protect the creation. And a lot of times you might actually get listened to. And so I think the quiet, like I can't do anything. That's just, so yeah, absolutely. And you end up building a coalition and a team that is on the same page. So
one of the funnier stories when we were looking for someone to possibly be a showrunner for Growing Blood, the first guy we met with had incredible credentials, incredible network TV, great shows I love. And he said at the beginning of the meeting, I want to get into that streaming, cable TV, high quality, not this network pablum stuff. And his first note was that our main character should have a child. Should have like an 8-year-old kid. And I was like, and that is why you will never graduate from network TV to prestige television, cable. It's like, because your first instinct is that you think you can make our drug addicted, middle-aged failure more likable by making him a terrible parent and giving him an 8-year-old that he's neglecting. It's like, it just cracked me up. It's like, I want to do something edgy and crazy and mean and awful. And can he have a dog? You know, it's just like, no, man, that's exactly the opposite of what this thing is about.
I'll one up you. I have a Hollywood horror story that actually speaks a lot to what Zach was talking about.
Actually, let's go around. We're going to do all of these. So actually, David, you're going to kick it off. I want the John Peters, Kevin Smith type stories. Give it to me.
So I got after Spencer and Locke came out and people really seemed to respond to it. I was approached by a company that was very invested in IP and multimedia, and they said, "Listen, we really loved your book. We want you to do a story that's like The Great Mouse Detective meets Train Spotting." And I really, actually, I liked that idea. And so I came up with a pitch and I started kind of working on it. And I remember driving up to Burbank to pitch it. And granted, I was living in the South Bay at the time. So this is like an hour and a half to drive up there. And I got there and I was really nervous and I gave them the pitch and they're like, "So we don't want animals in it. And we'd actually like our lead character to be this abused sex worker." And I just kind of looked at them and I was like, you know, I'm a man, right? Like, I can't write that. Like that, I would be crucified, and rightly so. Yeah. And
do some research, man. Get out there and
they tried to tell me. They said, you know, don't listen to the internet. The internet's opinion doesn't matter. And I said, your reputation matters.
Yeah,
that's the only thing you bring with you from book to book.
All right.
And there's not a dollar amount in the world that is worth your reputation. And so I think that's I think that kind of piggybacks off what Zach was saying earlier about, you know, being the best advocate for your work is that, you know, your reputation, you know, if this thing gets made into a TV series, sure, you could buy a pool or whatever, but if it's terrible and it affects your ability to do more work down the road, you need to think of the long game. And, you know, I would much rather, I've said this in my own work with optioning stuff. I would much rather nothing made at all than something bad.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because then it gets forever linked. I mean, how many people think Leave Extraordinary Gentlemen is like a bad book? Because of the movie, you know what I mean? Yeah. So who else wants to go? Who wants to, any more horror stories you guys want to share?
I don't know if I don't know if I should. I don't know if there's a way to tell this story without naming names. So the moment you find out that you went with the wrong horse, so we take this short story out, and this is what I talked about before. We have this kind of bidding war, right? And we end up going with Justin Lin because, you know, again, he's the biggest director in town at that time. Fast Six, you know, biggest opening in Universal history. And we go with him partially because of that, because, you know, it was just one of the 5 directors that could do anything at that point. Also, he wasn't just pitching us one movie. He was pitching us. He was like, look, I felt like I really kind of made, you know, the Fast and the Furious franchise, and you know, then it kind of got taken away from me. I couldn't do all the things I wanted to do, so I want my own franchise. So I very much see your property here as that. So I don't see it as one movie. I see it as 6 movies, billion-dollar movies, and that is pretty hard to say no to when you're sitting across from him and he's looking you in the eye and saying, I want to do this. And so it's like, you know, and we had plenty of other options where we were going to have more say and more. And, you know, that said, I say we because I wrote this thing with a partner and I was in there with a partner. We were the guys writing the screenplay. So you think that, you know, I mean, with a lot of this stuff, you hand it off and they go hire a writer, and you may never be in on any of the meetings. We were going to be the ones actually executing this thing. So you think you have a certain, you know, amount of power, of influence here. And so we end up going with Justin, and we signed this deal, and it's a big deal. And so we are preparing for our first meeting. And we have our story arcs down and character arcs and backstories and this, that, and the other thing. We have this really good, meaty character stuff, thematic stuff that's going to drive the whole thing. And we're so excited to sit down with them. And we head to Universal, and we're sitting down with Justin, and we start in on this thing. And we are on fire, and it's the best, you know, 5-10 minutes we've ever had in a room, and the producers seem really interested. And we can just see Justin's like eyes glazing over.
Oh boy!
And sort of disengaging. And finally, he's like, "Whoa, guys, look, character arcs, thematics, like, can't sort through any of it." He's like, "Let me tell you a story." He's like, "We're trying to. It's Fast 5, and we're this far away from shooting, and I can't wrap my mind around the story. It's not clicking for me. It doesn't make sense." He's like, you know, just I don't even know if I can make this movie. Like, we may have to delay. It's just not, you know. And we're thinking, okay, well, was it a character nugget? Was it a thematic nugget? What was it? He's like, then I'm in the shower, and something pops into my head: Paul and Vin dragging a safe through Rio. He's like, then the entire film made sense to me. He's like, so this is what I want you to do. Put this character stuff, put this thematic stuff aside. I want you guys to go and take a week, take 2 weeks, whatever you need, and come back with 5 of those. Paul and Vin dragging a safe through Rio. And so my writing partner and I had to leave and shelve all the stuff that we had, and we had to, you know, and then we had to go, and we had to spend 2 weeks coming up with just set piece ideas, and then we showed him this list of set pieces, and we wrote out a really nice 5 or 6 page document that was really easy to, you know, for him to digest. Didn't have a minute to even read it, so his producing partner had to kind of like sum them all up, you know, in like 30-second increments. And finally, he's like, that one, that one, and that one. And so he picks 3 of these things, and then we had to bend everything, the story, the character arc around these 3 set pieces that he wanted to do. And it was almost like writing by Mad Libs. And
that's exactly
and Zach hit it right on the head, where it's like the big name doesn't always mean that it's like the right way. It's the big name has always, it's, you know, it's good for a payday. It's good for a splashy announcement. But it's not the best thing for getting it made, because working with Justin Lin was, it was rough, because he was the hottest director in town at the time, and he can do anything he wants to do. And he may attach himself to 5, 6, 10 things. And so we would have his attention for 5 minutes, and then he would run off and he would do a Mountain Dew commercial. And then we'd have his attention for 5 more minutes, and then he would run off and do the 2nd season of True Detective. Then we'd have his 5 minutes, and then he'd run off and do Star Trek. And on and on and on. And the same thing happened with F. Gary Gray, and the same thing happened with those other guys. Zach, I'm holding
Can I say something about the Justin Lins? I'm also quite familiar with Justin Lins. But there are Justin Lins out there, and Rylan hit on the exact right question that you need to ask them when you're sitting down with them, which is, how many other projects are you currently working on and taking out? Because the answer is not sometimes just 5 or 10. Sometimes the answer is we currently have 32 adaptations in development, and this next 4-month period, we're going out with 12. You know, so you have your Justin Lin going out with 12 different projects to the Netflix. So you think Netflix is never going to say no to Justin Lin because he's Justin Lin. No, Justin Lin is going to be taking them 25 projects this year to see what sticks. Your project is one of those. He could care less. I'm sure Justin is. He cares about every project dearly, but Justin, the hypothetical big.
I'm totally in trouble on this Justin Lin thing now.
You're a scratcher ticket.
But it's absolutely right. And what ultimately, getting back to what David Avalon was saying earlier, which is when Justin Lin says, I want this project, you say, great, let me tell you the whole take that you told to Universal, let me tell you the whole take, and you sign off on it before the deal closes. Because if he wants Safes being dragged through Rio, he's not the right partner for it. Now, this is all, I can all say this out of learning curve too, and I'm too new to the IP game to share horror stories, but what I've learned is this exactly thing, which is you think the big name lends you a lot of credibility to get it made, and they have so many projects, and it's.
Well, also, I blame the auteur theory for people thinking that directors actually know anything about storytelling. Most big name directors know very, very little about story. And I say this as a former film director and possibly future film director. But Andrew Sarris came up with a thing called the auteur theory, which has convinced everyone that directors know anything about storytelling. And 9 out of 10 of them. Ridley Scott, if you give him the greatest script in the world, he will make a fantastic movie. If you dig pages out of my garbage and hand them to him in the wrong order, he will make a terrible movie. Like there's no guarantee of quality. I will say about Justin Lin and that process, that is exactly how Hitchcock made North by Northwest.
Yeah,
he went to Ernest Lehman and said, "Guy climbing around on Mount Rushmore, murder at the UN, something on a sex scene on a train," and Ernest Lehman went, "Okay." You know, airplane in a cornfield. Make all of that connect to one another in some way.
Back to a couple of things that Zach said. I mean, because I think that in dealing with this directorial monster that we're talking about, it's where your reps can really kind of make or break a project and your career actually, because you can sit down with Justin Lin and say like, "Hey, this is my take. Are you cool with it?" And he's going to tell you exactly what you want to hear. Again, Justin, when we sat down with Justin, I mean, he was talking about how, he wants to make this thing big and bad, and of course it sounds amazing to be the guy that like created a franchise instead of but he's like, look, I also kind of want to get back to my roots. He made this really amazing Sundance indie that kind of launched his career, and he's like, I feel like I've got too. I feel like I got too far away from my roots, and I really want to re-embrace that stuff here. And so he was telling us all the right things. And if you become a huge director like Justin Lin, you can convince people that that ice is hot, and you can do any of that stuff. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, I remember a time where when I first started, I had a really hot script that ended up on a blacklist, and then we had it was another like multiple suitor situation. And like Zach's talking about, we had Joel Schumacher, the late, sometimes great Joel Schumacher, who came out of the woodwork, and he's like, I absolutely want to do this. I want to make this my next movie. All of that, and Joel had a lot more cachet back then, 15 years ago, and it was a situation where it's like, again, like with the Justin Lin thing, well, you're an idiot if you don't go with Justin. Well, you were an idiot if you didn't go with Joel, but my rep at the time, who was Tom LaSalle, who's big. He produces all of Mike Judge's movies now and TV shows. Really kind of storied career. But he knew the score, and he was there to protect me, and he knew Joel Schumacher backwards and forwards, and he's like, this is what Joel does. He, like Zach said, Joel likes to attach himself to 15, 20 things at one time, and then just when he feels like making a movie, he looks at whatever way the wind's blowing, and he may flip a coin or fucking throw a dart at something, and then that's the one he does, and then your project ends up on the shelf for for 10 years. So. So yeah, I mean, I think that's certainly where having the right reps really comes in, because particularly you're a young guy. I've been doing this for 15 years, and I still don't know all the ins and outs. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
You need 5 or 6 people looking at the situation, seeing it from all the angles, and then coming to some sort of consensus. Like, do not try and do this alone.
No, absolutely. Actually, guys, okay, so we're getting close to it. So I'm gonna ask you the fun question, right? This is the fan questions, right? Straight up, like as quickly as you can. What is the best example of a comic book adaptation? Get nerdy. Get as nerdy as possible with it. Who wants to go first?
I can tell you this is not the right answer, but this is my answer.
Yeah, that's all I want.
The first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie is the movie that made me want to be a creator. That was my Christopher Reeve Superman movie. And I saw it. I was a teenager. I was in high school, and I walked out of that theater spellbound, seeing the way that Spider-Man would just kind of run across the city. It was so dynamic, and it was a different type of visual vocabulary than even what we'd seen in the comics. And I just fell in love with it. And ever since then, I had that dream of maybe if the chips fell my way, I'd be a writer. And then I sort of accidentally convinced myself to try it. So
awesome. I love that. David, what about you?
Before I answer the question, I want to tell anybody who's interested in this topic watching, read William Goldman's Adventures in the Screen Trade. Everything you need to know about what it is to be a writer in Hollywood, comics or no comics, is in that book, and it will answer every single question you had and make you happy and depressed at the same time. And actually, David mentioned mine. Superman the movie, the first Richard Donner movie, really was the first studio movie to take comic books seriously, and to say so from the outset that like this is going to be, we're taking this seriously. We're giving this an epic treatment. And Christopher Reeve is still the Superman in my head. And I will also say the Max Fleischer Superman cartoons from the 1940s. We reflect the Superman of the 1940s about as perfectly and beautifully and succinctly as you possibly can.
Absolutely. I like your answer, David. I just want to throw that out there. What about you, Zach?
I'm not ready yet. Rylan, what do you have one?
I'd like to get cute, but Marvel does such a great job with the cinematic universe. I mean, Iron Man is the original Iron Man is the best single. It's the single best tentpole I've ever seen. But their movies as a whole, the world building, the universe is awesome. I love that they'll give you like an interesting curveball sometimes. Iron Man 3, which the Shane Black version was really, really interesting. It's hard to argue with that. I mean, they just set the bar so high. And then I think the first Deadpool movie was an A+. I think they just really nailed the character and the swagger of it, and the filmmaking reflected the character in a way that I think rarely happens. And that's my answer.
Love it. You ready, Zach?
Non-superhero stuff in the original landscape. I really want to say, I got two. One, I really wanted to say Deadly Class, only because Rick participated in the creation of that TV show. So he makes his baby, his comic. It's one of the things that launches his career, and he gets to put it the way he wants. I hope so on television. It didn't go, but I enjoyed it immensely as a fan of the series. But I think another one that's going to have a lot of lasting power is The Boys. The Boys was a great graphic novel, and that series, despite some varying in the adaptation, really captures the tone of what they did. And I think The Boys is going to go 7 seasons. I think that thing is going to be a Game of Thrones institution in terms of television. It seems to be one of the largest comic adaptations to hit in this new wave that we're experiencing. So I don't know about best, but I'm just thinking about recent in this current wave that we're in. And
I love it.
Yeah.
Good. Hey guys, I want to say thank you very much for hanging out with me and talking shop. I have more questions that I wish I was able to ask more of them. We got to do a longer one in the near future.
Yeah,
for sure.
So, real quick, do your shout outs. Let's go from the top. Rylan, what do you want to shout out real quick? What do you want people to check out?
I am on social media everywhere at Rylan Grant. My book, The Jump, is still available via BackerKit. The Jump, one word,
Nice.
.backerkit.com. You can still pick that up. Aberrants and the Ringo Award-winning Aberrant and Banjax are available at fine comic shops everywhere. Also, I'm going to. I am tomorrow moderating the Immortal Studios panel at 10 a.m. Pacific, and Mr. Avalone and I are launching our podcast tomorrow at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. It's called The Writer's Block. We're going to have David F. Walker and Erica Schultz on. So tune in for that right here.
Awesome. What about you, Zach?
I'm on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at Zach Capst, and I'm the writer of Eclipse, Port of Earth, Lost City Explorers, and Join the Future, which is out now. And if anyone's watching this and they have questions, hit me up on social media, and I'm happy to continue this conversation there.
Awesome. What about you, David Avalon?
I say the same thing, by the way. If you see me on social media, feel free to ask me anything. The great thing about having a truly unusual last name is I am very easily Googled. You can find my website, Twitter, all that stuff. As far as projects and product, if you go to kevineastmanstudios.com and hit the Drawing Blood page, there you will see my pride and joy. And I'm moderating the Kickstarter panel, which begins in a mere minute and a half.
Okay. All right. Cool. We're going to get you out of here, Dave. What about you, David Pepos?
Sure. I'm on Twitter and Instagram right here, Pepos D. It's my last name, first initial. You can buy Spencer and Locke 2 and go into the chapel anywhere comics are sold. And you can join the pre-launch page for my new Kickstarter, Project Saffron, at bit.ly/Project Saffron. It's just one word. Mm-hmm. Our campaign starts Monday morning. And if you liked what I did on Spencer and Locke, you're going to love this book.
Awesome. And I'm going to remind people, for everybody here in the room, Previews catalog, pre-order at your local comic shop. Be sure you're pre-ordering with your local comic shop. And you can find every single one of these gentlemen's books by going to previewsworld.com/search. And you can look up all their stuff. So definitely check it out. Get yourself a nice education and support your local comic shop. Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it. Maybe we'll get to do this again sometime. Like I said, I got more questions for you. So
anytime.
It'd be fun.
Yes.
Mainframe Comic Con, Troy Jeffrey Allen, and I will catch you guys later.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining us for our panel on Kickstarter. I am joined today by a number of lovely panelists. Let's see who we have. I know we've got the beautiful and exciting, got to scroll down, Charlie Stickney. Let's see Charlie.
Hey, how's it going, David? Great last panel. I just watched the whole thing. It was fantastic.
Thank you. Glad to hear it. And the return of David Pipos, the incredible David Pipos. I will have all you guys give quick introductions for yourself in a minute. We also have, I'm reading off the website. Don't judge. We have Russell Nolte joining us.
Hello. It's true. I am lovely.
You are very lovely, Russell. And do we still have Peter Shao? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
It's Emma.
It's Emma. We're having Emma. Hi, Emma.
Hi. Sorry, I'm not Peter.
We lost someone at the last minute. Welcome, everyone. I want to go in order and have everyone introduce themselves. Charlie, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, my name is Charlie Stickney. I'm a writer and Kickstarter creator who also is co-publisher of Scout Comics. So I go back and forth between the retail market and the Kickstarter market, and I think there's great synergy between the two. And I'm really excited to talk to you guys all about doing Kickstarter today. And the biggest thing I've done on Kickstarter is probably White Ash, which is what I'm most known for.
Nice. David Pipos?
Yeah. I'm David Pepos. I'm the writer of Spencer and Locke and Going to the Chapel over at Action Lab. And I'm actually launching my first Kickstarter project on Monday. We've codenamed it Project Saffron. And for what I did to crime fiction with Spencer and Locke, I'm going to be doing the fantasy with this book. So we're very excited to be rolling this out on Monday.
Nice. Russell?
My name is Russell Nolte. I have raised $180,000 on Kickstarter across 12 projects. I don't have a super big hit like Charlie does, but the one that I am most known for is Cthulhu is Hard to Spell, and then Ichabod Jones Monster Hunter, two of my comic book properties.
And Emma?
Yeah, I'm the director of content at Immortal Studios. Immortal's a new comic-first content studio, and we're creating an interconnected universe of modern and elevated wuxia stories. And this year we launched our first project, which was the Adept on Kickstarter.
Nice. And I'm David Avalone. I'm a comic book writer and screenwriter, and written some titles for Dynamite and kickstarted 2 volumes of something called Drawing Blood with my partner, Kevin J. Eastman. It's not a J. That's just a that's a cartoon where you stick a J in the middle of everyone's name. I want to start with the question, why Kickstarter? I think people have different reasons for using crowdsourcing. And I'd like to say from the beginning, I'm using Kickstarter the same way we use Kleenex and Xerox, not to cut out anyone who wants to use Indiegogo or Seed and Spark or any of the other crowdsource funding. But Emma, why don't we start with you? Tell me why Kickstarter for you.
Kickstarter for us was being able to just really connect with the community. Our company, we had options of other distribution models, but one of the things that we really want to do as a company is engage directly with our fans and bring our fans into our creation process somewhat and get direct feedback. It's being able to have that conversation with them that really excited us about Kickstarter.
That is definitely a great aspect of it. Russell?
Well, so I first started doing Kickstarter because I had no other choice. There's no other options really, except for Indiegogo, I think. And that's just the thing you do in comics. So every industry has its stack of things that you just do. If you if you run books, you do Amazon and whatever KU and run Facebook ads. And if you run comics, you do shows and you do Kickstarter. It wasn't until I really moved away from doing Kickstarters in 2019 that I realized that the thing I really love about Kickstarter is you get the customer data. And like Emma was saying, you get the direct interaction with fans. Aside from other crowdfunding platforms, you're doing it on your own site. There's no other platform that really allows you to get the data of the person that buys. I guess eBay and Etsy do that. They charge a heck of a lot more than 5% to do that part of it. So yeah, it really became about when you look at the Amazon dashboard, all you see is graphs. When you get your report from Diamond, all you get is a number. When you do Kickstarter, you literally see every person, what they backed, why they backed, and you can look back at almost 10 years of Kickstarter campaigns, maybe 10 years of Kickstarter campaigns at this point, and see what worked on every campaign. And there's nothing like that kind of data to show you what you should and shouldn't be doing.
Right. And you've kickstarted novels, prose novels as well?
I have. I raised almost $20,000 on novels on Kickstarter this year.
Yeah, my first contact with Kickstarter, I did a feature film. And we did the production budget on Kickstarter and the post-production on Indiegogo because we want it to be more of an open-ended, let's get every dime we can. And it worked, and the movie's out there. So it is useful for all sorts of things beyond comic books. David, tell us why Kickstarter for you. And this is your first.
Yeah,
So
well, I get to blame a lot of people on this panel, actually. Charlie and Russell and you, Dave. I've been press ganged since October. Everyone you three in particular have told me, why aren't you doing a Kickstarter? You should really do a Kickstarter. And I apologize for not attributing exactly who said this, but the thing that really kind of clicked for me was this idea that there are certain people who buy their comics just at comic shops. And there are certain people who just buy them at conventions and other people who just buy them on Amazon or Comixology. And then there's a subsection that just or primarily buys their books on crowdfunding, on Kickstarter. And I realized, my whole ethos as a creator is I want to keep inviting people to the table. I want to build that larger consensus. And so the idea of doing a Kickstarter was very appealing to me. And I think COVID really crystallized that line of thinking for me. There's been a lot of uncertainty in the direct market as a result of COVID. We had the temporary shutdown of Diamond. There have been a lot of publishers who have been sort of either tapering their offer, their releases, or staggering them. And for us, we had 44 pages of Project Saffron already finished, and I realized that they paired together really nicely. And I said, oh, wait a minute, we don't have to wait for permission anymore. We can just put it out there. And I think it's very empowering as a creator. I felt like I knew a lot about the creation side of a comic and the marketing side of a comic, but I didn't know anything about printing or distributing until this project. And I think, that was kind of the last piece of the puzzle for me. And I think a lot of creators should really think about taking their career in their own hands because you don't necessarily have to wait anymore.
I was going to say, it's one of the most useful things to me as someone who didn't know anything about publishing, about doing a Kickstarter, was learning this is what this costs. And it gives you an appreciation for the market that you don't really have if you're just a creator handing in your work and a publisher handles everything. And you go, oh man, the margins on floppies are not great. You really learn a lot about the business when you have to go out and find a printer and talk about how are you going to mail it to people and have the infrastructure to mail it to people and put things in boxes, like some very mundane things. You go, oh, that actually costs a great deal of money for me. So it is also, for everything else it gives you an appreciation, ironically, for the industry and how the industry runs, and you learn about your own industry by stepping outside of it and making your own comic book. And it gives you an impression, as I said before, of those margins. Charlie, why?
Story that Matt Hawkins told me one day when he started doing Kickstarter. He said something with Dave Pep. He's like, do we absolutely need this money from Kickstarter? That's $15,000 to mail. Because he's like, no, we don't absolutely need it. But I'd be an idiot to leave money on the table. And every time someone tells me that they refuse to do Kickstarter or they won't do Kickstarter because it's not really self-publishing or whatever, I think about that in the back of my head. I'm like, all right, I mean, it's good enough for Matt Hawkins. It's good enough for all these other people. But if you want to leave money on the table of people that will not buy your book any other way, that is also your right as a creator. But I think that's considering that it's such a low margin business, I think that's kind of silly.
Well, and you're not only leaving money on the table, as Emma pointed out, you're also leaving fan engagement on the table. The degree to which people, in a literal sense, they're investing in you. They're investing in your success. They want you to succeed. They want to be a part of your book. And of course, some of us even sell the idea of, no, really, you are a part of the book, and people pay to have their name mentioned by a character or have it on a tombstone in a graveyard scene. A guy paid us to have his cat be a character in the comic book. So Shane Bookman has a cat that looks like one of our fans' cats, drawn into any number of issues. And I think that's delightful. We did have a thing where one guy wanted himself and his 2-year-old drawn into Drawing Blood. And then he saw the first issue and went, this is kind of R-rated. Can we not put my 2-year-old in the R-rated comic book? And luckily we had the Ragdolls, which are the spin-off, which is very PG. And I was like, we'll draw you into that instead, and you can actually show it to your child instead of having to hide every other page of Drawing Blood from them. Charlie, why Kickstarter for you?
Well, I think it's a lot of the things that everyone said, but I think the other thing is if you are a new creator coming to comics and you're looking to break in with a creator-owned project, you need to sort of be, you have to be very serious about the business side of things. And if you look at what's going on in the publishing space with, and look at Diamond and see how many titles in Diamond would actually support the economics of producing your book, it gets really scary very quickly. So like say, things have changed recently because it's really hard to track the numbers, but let's go back to March before COVID hit. If you're looking to make a single issue floppy, you probably need to be selling somewhere in the neighborhood of 8,000 to 10,000 copies of that issue to be able to pay for your production costs through the direct market. Now, how many comics that came out in the direct market are from independent creators? If you take out the Marvel and the DC, you're down to about 10 titles that aren't based on a property. So you're talking about creator-owned properties. And of those 10 titles, 8 or maybe 9 of them are by people that are big names in the comic book industry. So maybe 1 to 2 titles a month are coming from brand new people. And, that's their first issue. And then it's going to drop to 5,000 and they're no longer going to be able to produce it. So if you do a deep dive into the economics of comics, you're going to find that the direct market actually doesn't sustain the creation of new content for new creators to the industry. So if you look at that and you want to create something that's going to be around for more than 3 or 4 issues, I don't think you actually have a choice unless you partner up with someone. And again, like most companies, like say IDW or some place that's going to pay you page rates, is not going to take a chance on a new creator because they're looking at the same metrics. And they're going to say, we don't know who you are. For you to get your brand new idea as a brand new creator in with these companies and have them pay you to make it is so incredibly hard and almost never happens. So realistically looking at it, to me, crowdfunding is the only way that you can go unless you're finding a producer or someone who's going to put money in, and then you're giving away lots of rights before you even make the comic.
Yeah. Now that's been my experience as well. The Kickstarter I did with Kevin, Drawing Blood, we did sort of reach out to some publishers for it, and we got before the Kickstarter to see if anyone was interested. And I think it tells you a lot about the state of the industry that I could not sell a comic that was co-created by Kevin Eastman anywhere. And I
always say that. Sorry, there's a really great article from Jim Zub that we probably have all read because we're of a certain age in comics, but this was probably 10 years ago, and he talked about his Skull Kickers, which was his big first book, and literally the economics of doing that book through the first or second trade. And if you haven't gone through Jim Zub's archives and looked at all of those old Skull Kicker things, it is a treasure trove of information that I'm not sure if people that are coming into comics now understand. He literally talks about it from beginning to end, the economics of how to make the single issues and when he broke even on this trade and how he was in the red, even though the book was selling 10,000 units or 5,000 units. It was really eye-opening to me when I started making comics.
Yeah. And obviously, a big part of the Kickstarter process, and it's how people get screwed over, is you got to do that math. You got to do the shipping math. You got to do the printing math. You got to be prepared for, there's an expression a military expression used by Ulysses Grant that I always use in meetings about Kickstarter, which is be prepared for catastrophic success. That there can be a point where you have more customers than you have prepared to satisfy, and you have to sort of build into your budget. Not that it's the worst case scenario that 20,000 people want to buy your book, but What does that mean for you? Are you really prepared to put 20,000 comic books into 20,000 envelopes and buy 20,000 stamps for it? Like, are you really prepared for all of that? So research is a big part of it. What I was saying is, even the publishing world right now, and it's all changed for the worse, really, because of COVID. It's very risk averse. Like I said, people were not willing to give the co-creator of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles a page rate for his new thing. And I think that's pretty wild when you consider the size of that name in the business. And so we decided to go with Kickstarter for that reason. And again, we were lucky. We had Kevin has a built-in mailing list. He has some infrastructure. So it was easier for us. And we raised a good deal of money. And we prepared from the beginning to pay people real page rates. But once that was done and we went to publishers to go, okay, now we've paid for our comic book to be created, a company I will not name offered us $1,000 an issue for future issues. They wanted the 4 Kickstarter issues for free. And we said, no, I guess we're going to self-publish this. So it's a hard thing, but I think we're all very lucky to live in a time where the crowdfunding is available, because 30 years ago, this was just simply, what Kevin did literally was, but he borrowed $3,000 from someone's Uncle Quentin. I can't remember if it was Peter's Uncle Quentin or Kevin's Uncle Quentin. And
can I also?
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, and this is the other thing. So if people who are watching this panel, a lot of them may have been to Kickstarter before, but over the last year to 2 years, the quality of comics on Kickstarter has had an evolutionary leap. So, it used to be there'd be one good project for every 400 terrible ones. And now it's really a great place to find new voices, anthologies. I mean, the Adept that Emma did is a beautiful project. Everything that Russell does is great. I'm sure what David is going to do is going to be fantastic as well. So I think it's important to make that distinction, that this is not necessarily a place that people go who can't be published because of quality. It's just because of the economics of the market makes more sense. And you're seeing bigger and bigger names that are now coming to Kickstarter. So it's just like the bar is getting higher and higher with every campaign.
Well, I can't remember who said this, but Kickstarter, if you consider it as a publisher in and of itself, would be the 3rd largest publisher of comic books, way above Dark Horse, IDW, Dynamite, Boom, Oni, any of those. Only Marvel and DC outstrip, and really, Kickstarter probably outstrips those as well, not in distribution, but in number of books sold, and number of good projects that are out there. So, Emma, tell us about your project and how it moved through the Kickstarter system and what you got out of it.
So The Adept, which is our first project, is about a young woman with a really broken past who's visited by a Shaolin master who trains her in a dream. The beginning of the project, it was an idea that was swimming around our founder, Peter Shao's head for a while. And about a year ago, we really decided that we wanted to make it into a comic. And at that point, we were researching Kickstarter as a potential way to engage with a fan base. And actually, I think it was a panel that you, David, were on, and Charlie, it was how we met Charlie, who co-wrote the comic. I'd just gotten off a flight from Asia, and I landed and went straight to LA Comic Con. And, I was sat there and listening to both of you talk about your success and wondering if we could do it. And we very much did. And we were wonderfully flanked by Charlie helping us to create this project and also advise this project. So, our success was also Charlie's success. And both of you guys, the advice that you gave was really instrumental.
Well, thank you. That is really terrific to hear, because that is really, aside from the joy of hearing our own voices outside of our heads, that is why you do things like this. You hope that the information you're giving is useful. And can I ask what was the raise, and what did you end up getting out of it?
Yeah, we had 1,205 backers, which is really great for a first single issue project, so I'm told. And we raised over $35,000. So it definitely blew through our target. We fully funded on the first day, and suffice to say, we're very happy with the comic.
What was the project? Was it how many pages? How many issues?
It's a 40-page comic, and it's the start of a series. So it's the first title of a series.
And are you planning to do another Kickstarter for future issues, or what's the mission going forward?
We are at the moment. We're concurrently developing 4 titles. The Adept being the first, and actually at the moment Charlie is working with us hard, and as is Tasha, the co-writer, and Ishan on the next issue. Great.
Now, Russell, I know you've done a lot of these, and they've all been very successful. Do you want to tell us about the first one and the last one? Like, what's the alpha and the omega? What have you learned? What have you gotten out of it?
Oh, this is tough because I do 3 different types of books. Really, I do like my graphic novels, and then I do the anthologies, and then I do the novels. And the last one I did was a novel, and the first one I did was a comic, and then that sort of has been straddled by anthologies in between. To like the anthologies are where we really built the audience. Like we had one called Cthulhu is Hard to Spell, which you can see behind me, which did $39,000 from 1,000 backers, which kind of like solidified, I guess, Wannabe Press and me in like the indie comic community. The thing that I learned, I think, the most was that just because you have success in one thing does not mean you're going to have success in all of the things that you put out on Kickstarter. So, for instance, we had a book. Our first book was Ichabod Jones Monster Hunter. It raised $5,500. The next book we did was Katrina's Hard to Spell. It raised $8,700. Both kind of post-apocalyptic comic books or graphic novels. And then I did a book called My Father Didn't Kill Himself, which was a mystery novel told in blog posts, and that one raised, like, it was our lowest raise of like ever. It was like $3,500 from 150 backers or something like that. Then we went down even further with our next book and further with our next book. And then when we came back with our Monsters and Other Scary Shit book, was really the one that broke everything open, because we had asked people like, well, what do you want? Like, why aren't you buying these books? I don't understand. Like, I don't understand. And they're like, well, it's not comics. It's not monsters. So like, do the thing we want and we will buy it. And my philosophy from that time was like, all right, man, like, I'll try it. Like, you say that you want monsters and comics, and like, if I make this thing and you buy it, I will make more of the thing. And like, if you don't buy it, then I will like not make that thing anymore. And kind of use this for everything. Like, a lot of people say you should, like, they want prints until you actually put them on your table. And the minute you put them on your table is the moment that all those people who said they wanted prints suddenly like don't have the money to buy that print. I think we've all had that experience probably. Maybe someone has great print sales. Like, it's wonderful for you. But for me, every time I test something, it's a really good indicator of like, should I keep making it, or are you just blowing smoke? So I did the Monsters and Other Scary Shit book, and like, it was our biggest. It literally eclipsed all of the other books I had ever done on Kickstarter combined. And then they were like, make more, but like, do these things. We like this book, but like, has a lot of problems. It's like uneven. It's black and white. Like, they're long stories. Let's like do like all color, make it kid friendly, and like, don't put shit in the title. And like, then we'll even back more and make it like branded to Cthulhu, or like sure. Something like make it branded to something that is not just overall monsters, because like the spread was just too much. And so I said, all right, like, what's your favorite genre? What's your favorite thing? And they were like, well, we all love Lovecraft. So I was like, all right, like, I'll do a Lovecraft thing. Like, I like Lovecraft, like, minus the problematicness of him as a human. I like Lovecraft, so I did the Lovecraft book, and like, shockingly, that raised more money. Like, those, and then after that, I did a book. I was having some trouble in 2019 selling books on Amazon, and people have been asking me for Ichabod Jones again. And I said, all right, like, let's try this. It's worked in the past, so I need $15,666 to like reprint the first volume of Ichabod, print the second volume, print the 5th issue of Ichabod, and like make this actually happen. And like, you like fund that, and I will give you 2 additional volumes. And I was like, there's no, like, you don't make 15. Like, I'm nobody. Like, I'm still nobody. Like, I'm not raising 50. And I don't like, it wasn't a number 1. It was like a number 5. And I was like, there's just no way. There's no way like enough people are going to like back this book for a 5th issue of a thing that like is not a collector's item. It's like not the start of a series. It's like not a thing that like is, there's just no way. But they all proved me wrong. We raised $16,800.
That's amazing.
And so then that has kind of become the thing that I've learned. It's like Kickstarter is a great way to test things. Like I did the book series that flamed out epically on Amazon, and to the tune of like I spent $20,000 roughly, or $10,000 of it, $15,000, something like that, and I raised like $2,000 on Amazon over the course of like an entire year. But people were like, well, why aren't you doing more God's First books? And I was like, because y'all don't buy it. And they were like, well, we'll buy it. We just don't want to buy it on Amazon because like we don't like them. I was like, all right. So I did a Kickstarter for those books, and we went from raising $2,000 in like a year to raising $10,000 in like a week, 10 days. And we went from like that being a book that was just going to be the shame of my life. Like I was just going to never be able to make money on these books. Like when you don't make money at the launch on like a book that's like that much in debt, there's no chance that you're going to like then come back and suddenly like the 5th book's going to make it all back. So it went from like these books are dead and I'm never going to think about them to me now I just finished the 7th book in that series, all based on this idea of like, all right, like I will test this thing. I will make the product. If you are actually serious, then I'll keep making this thing. Like, I don't care. Like, I like Ichabod. I like the God's Verse. I like these things. But if you don't like it enough to like, I'm then going to end it there. And that's going to be it.
Well, I think that's a great point there about Kickstarter is that, you know, it feels personal to your fans in a way that Amazon didn't. And you were able to get to them directly through Kickstarter in a way that you weren't with Amazon. And well, another aspect... No, go ahead.
The interesting thing is I literally got messages from people when I did the campaign, the Ichabod campaign, and they said, it's nice. Like the reason I backed was because it seemed like you really cared about this campaign, and you haven't really, it doesn't seem like you've really cared about the other things. Because like I wasn't sending 30 emails. I like wasn't doing the things that I wasn't like building this big event. Like Amazon's just a different kind of beast. Sure. But most importantly, like, I think we had more sales on Amazon. Like, frankly, like I think that if I looked at my Amazon numbers comparatively to the 260 or 70 people that I had on the Kickstarter campaign, I'm relatively positive that I had more sales than on the Kickstarter. But 500 sales led to whatever that amount of money was that I made on Amazon comparatively to like 250 sales, or you keep it 95% of it, and you can upsell and oversell and sell multiple books and like do all this stuff. They suddenly, like, I was like able to say, oh, well, I could make $10,000. So I don't have to do 1,000 book launches a year. Like I don't have to launch 20 books, which people complained about the whole time I was doing those launches. Like, you're launching too quickly. I'm annoyed. Like, stop launching so many books at a time. And being able to say, well, what if I just did a slate of like 4 books at a time? And like, I did it 4 times a year. And every time I did it, I made it this like big thing. And like, I spent like a month talking about the book plus time beforehand and afterwards. And like, I just made it this big experiential thing. And I would only need like my most rabid fans to break even. And then I could go into all of these other launches, either just saying, well, there's no way you can make money on a standalone, so I'm not going to put any money into there, or saying, now I can take the money that I would have spent on the advertising, and instead of being in the hole $5,000 and then another $5,000, I now can take the profit and the book, and like now I can just do a whole different launch to a whole nother people. Because what I absolutely learned is what one of y'all said, which was like, the people that buy on Amazon don't buy on Kickstarter. And so the people that were buying on Amazon, Kickstarter, were a whole different group of people that I could talk to them and then the people that wanted it on Amazon afterwards could go and buy it on Amazon afterwards. And like, that was fine. I got the best of both worlds.
Yeah, a couple of things about that. One, obviously, the benefit of being able to keep as much of the money that you're raising as humanly possible, the fan connection. I'd also say, in terms of the different kinds of projects, we were very aware with Drawing Blood that our fan base was going to be Kevin's fan base. But the comic book is a comedy drama set in the contemporary times, doesn't have superheroes, doesn't have ninjas, doesn't have anything like that. So the comic within the comic, the radically rearranged Ronin Ragdolls, is funny animals fighting crime. So we knew that for the Ninja Turtles fan, there was that stretch goal of the thing that was actually going to appeal to them, as opposed to having to say, oh, you like the Ninja Turtles? Here's something that's like all that jazz. You like that, right? You like a midlife crisis of the artist story. So we gave them what we wanted we gave them what they wanted, and we gave them what we wanted at the same time. And I think having that balance in what kind of stories you want to tell, but also having an idea of what your audience wants from you.
It's what's, I know I'm dominating this time, so I'll just say one more thing, and then I'll what's nice about doing a bunch of other projects is you see where the ceiling is on different things. And like, it's the same mailing list that I launched my Cthulhu book that raised $31,000 this year, was the same audience that I pretty much the exact same audience that I launched both my Godsverse and Summer Slate books, which are novels, which both raised about $9,000, over $9,000. And it's the same audience that I launched pretty much the Ichabod Jones 2019 book. Like each of those things were different. Were different projects, but the same. And it really got me comfortable with the idea that like everything you do has like a ceiling and a floor. And you need to be comfortable with the fact that, like, if you launch another Cthulhu book, you're going to make $30,000. If you launch another Ichabod book, you'll make X amount. I actually don't know because the second volume hasn't come out yet. If you launch this kind of books, you're going to make this thing. And, like, it's not that, like you have to be comfortable with that just because you love a thing doesn't mean your fan base is going to love a thing as much as you do. And you have to become comfortable that each thing is like a piece of a mosaic.
And you can pop around Kickstarter and look at other projects and see what has raised what kind of money from what kind of fan base and have a general sense of what's possible and what's not possible. I want to ask David, in designing your campaign, which launches Monday, is very exciting. What is your ask, and what is the like how many pages and how much money?
Yeah. So our goal we have a goal of $6,000 for our 44-page first issue. The thing I really like about Kickstarter that I think was particularly freeing for me, and some of it was kind of like I was saying earlier, solving one problem with another. I love Project Saffron. This is my A game. This is, I think, some of the best stuff I've ever written, and it's certainly one of the most beautiful books I've ever worked on. So introducing myself to the Kickstarter community with my A game felt like the right move. And so, yeah, we're the way I had written this initially as 6 normal-sized issues. I realized that the way I've written this project, it's kind of in that 3-act structure. So they pair together really nicely. And by virtue of it being Kickstarter, where you're not tethered to the month-to-month model, we're able to sort of do this on a more seasonal basis. So, for example, I've already written the whole series. My part of that job is done, but the project management is still going on. And for those who don't understand, I'm like, the worst injury I'm ever going to get is like getting off the couch. Whereas like my artist like could blow out their wrist, and that could be like a career-ending injury. So I always want to be cognizant of that. And by releasing our plan is to do 3 Kickstarters to sort of encapsulate our full story. It gives the art team time to put everything together and keep it at the level of quality that I think is going to really help sell this book. but do so in a way that like they're going to get to sleep at night and like they're going to get to like hang out with their kids.
Sure.
You know, that those kinds of important things.
Quality of life is very important. I mean, Kevin and I, when we did ours, we set our page rates for the artists in a comfortable zone for everybody. There's sort of no point in going through all this, all of the effort of a Kickstarter. Two things: that you have to care about it a whole lot, and you have to feel that the reward is worth the effort.
Sure.
So you set the one thing you do not want is to go through the difficulty of a Kickstarter and 30 days later be full of dread that you now have to make this thing that you agreed to make. You want to be excited and thrilled. And I think that what you said about bringing your A game, I really think that people have a sense of that. I think that when you're promoting your Kickstarter, I think people know that you're doing something you love.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine someone wanting to put the kind of effort you have to put into a Kickstarter for a cynical cash grab comic. I mean, I'm sure people do it, and I pity them. But and look, as you said, as Russell said, knowing the audience and what the audience wants, not to denigrate anyone else's project, but I remember when we were working on the second Drawing Blood Kickstarter, Ben Bishop sent me a link, I think, to the Lady Death one, and he was like, "This guy's making $500,000." Like, he's making a very specific thing for a very specific audience, and if we wanted to make that thing, we would also make $500,000. But we don't want to make that thing, so we're not going to make $500,000. We're going to make $120,000, and that's very nice for our little art book that we like. That's
if you want steady money, be a plumber. Comics and art in general is always going to have that kind of element of risk and that sort of lack of structure. And, we roll the dice on it. But I think, the Kickstarter, it really kind of, it hits my particular buttons because I've always felt a sense of responsibility to promote my work, not for my sake, but, my collaborators. I mean, I've never worked with an artist who hasn't been an introvert. Right. And yet they're doing the lion's share of the work here. So especially if you're the writer, it's kind of incumbent on you to talk your team up.
Yep. Absolutely. Charlie, tell us about your Kickstarter experience and what you've learned and where you started and where you ended.
Sure. I'm going to go through a couple of things that I think also might be useful for people who are looking to do their own Kickstarter. I think one of the great things about the platform is it's a community-based platform. And if you're part of the community, that's going to help you. Like Emma was saying, she saw me at the, we met at the Los Angeles Comic-Con panel on Kickstarters, where David, you and I had been together. I had actually been tabling with David on the same day. I'd seen Russell there. So we're all part of a community, and the bigger your community, the more that you're part of that Kickstarter community network, the easier it is. So because how Kickstarter really works is creators help other creators. And so you don't want to come to Kickstarter as someone who's never backed a Kickstarter or don't know any of the other creators on Kickstarter, because that's the ecosystem. You need to be part of the ecosystem before you ask something of the ecosystem. So I think if you're a new creator, make sure that you've backed a bunch of Kickstarters, that you're friends with people who do Kickstarters, get advice, but just buy into that ecosystem. So for me,
that's great advice. And also, I just like to say, and you will end up with a pile of great comic books on your nightstand to read.
Yeah. So I had done the math with White Ash, and I knew that I needed to take it to Kickstarter, because while I had done things in other mediums, I didn't have a name in comics. But the other big thing with Kickstarter is, Kickstarter helps you build your audience, but you need to have an audience when you start. So you need to find some way to make sure that on the first couple of days you bring people in, whether it's just making sure that you have 50 friends and family that are going to show up, or once you've done one project, you can, if they like it, those backers will come back. You need to make sure that you have a crowd that's already built in that's going to help you expand your audience. Because the other thing that's really different about Kickstarter versus, say, the direct market is the single issue sales in the direct market start with number one, and they're way up here. And then number 2, it goes down by half or more. And then number 3, it goes down again. And you have attrition of just people, they're waiting for the trade to come out or something else. But with Kickstarter, it's the other way, because people find you. And the more people that are backing your project, the more they tell your friends about it. So like my first campaign for White Ash #1, which is about 3 years ago now, I think we did somewhere around 320 something backers. And I think I raised about $12,000. Flash forward to White Ash #5, we had over 1,000 backers. We're doing over $33,000 for that book. And so like my projects are building upon themselves because people tell other people. So like that's the difference with Kickstarter, that it's kind of like, it's that community. So, and if you're trying to tell your friends to come to Kickstarter and they're like, hey, I don't know about Kickstarter, you can say, find the big name creators who are already on Kickstarter. Jimmy Palmotti's been doing Kickstarters for years, really successfully. There was someone who was just huge, who just had like a $200,000 comic book Kickstarter. Was it Ram V or I forget who specifically it was, but you've got really big names from mainstream comics that are now coming to Kickstarter. So find one of those campaigns and show it to them and say, hey, this guy who you love who writes for Marvel is doing a Kickstarter. This guy who loves, who loves DC, find some DC people who are doing Kickstarters and use that as sort of your entryway and saying, there's great comics on Kickstarter and I'm going to have one too. And I'm your friend, so maybe you could be there for me on day one.
That's great advice. And do you have one coming up, Charlie? I can't remember. Do you have one?
So I'm in the middle of fulfilling one right now for White Ash Chapter 5. If, with the postage situation being like it is, as soon as I can get that out, we'll probably be having a White Ash spinoff coming out later this year. And then, if that goes well, I have more episodes of the game. I mean, even though I'm working in publishing, I'm still working in the Kickstarter land, because they're different markets. The retail market is different than the Kickstarter market. The Amazon market is different than the Kickstarter market. And you need, as a creator, to be in all these different places.
Absolutely. Yeah, we started with Drawing Blood Volume 1. We had we had one stretch goal, which we met. The final total was $106,000, something like that. We fulfilled it, and I really wanted to get it out into the world. We got some offers from publishers, which I mentioned earlier, which were less than great. Even showing them the profit from Kickstarter. And so we decided to self-publish and put an ad in previews and hope for the best. And the first issue did very well. There was the same direct market decline. My hope had been that we would continue to fund the comic through sales of the first 4 issues. But that did not happen the way, and honestly, part of it was, I think we said earlier, like, why leave the money on the table? If you can pre-sell the comic to 1,000 people and pay everyone's rent for the 4 or 5 months that's required to make the comic, why not just do that? Why? Like, it's a choice between taking a risk or not taking a risk. You could choose to not take the risk. We did have a slightly different outcome from other people. On our second Kickstarter, we made more money, but we had a little more than half the supporters. And I think we were the victims of our own success, in that people saw Drawing Blood and the Ragdolls in their local comic book store, and then they saw us do a Kickstarter, and I think a lot of people went, I'll just wait until it's in the direct market. Why should I bother if this is just going to be, if Diamond's going to be selling me this in 6 months, why do I need to jump on now? No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, from a publishing standpoint, that's something I try to differentiate. What I'm putting out in the Kickstarter market will be different than what I put in the retail market. It's not just a new cover. I'll add new pages. It'll be different breaks. So it feels like if you're a completist, you're going to want both. And if you're a retailer, you're getting something that's a first print. It's not just a reprint of something else that, was already someplace.
We did that a little bit, but I feel like more of the variation was in the first issue. We had more variant covers of the first issue. We snuck a little bit of extra content into every issue. But I think people will all just, eventually this will be an omnibus in 6 months and I'll just buy that. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I do think I want to hit the piece of advice again, that if you're shy, if you don't have a big social media presence, Kickstarter is a challenge. And big is in the eyes of the beholder. But I think here in the 21st century, it behooves you to engage with people on social media, to build a fan base, to be, for want of a better word, a reliable personality. I mean, the word branding sounds very cynical in some ways, but as silly as this sounds, I make sure that when, like, I look like my avatar on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, I have a persona that people can become familiar with and can rely on. And if you go through basically everyone who's able to maintain control of their career, if you look across all of the arts, has a persona that people feel like they understand and they can rely on, and they know what they're getting from you. And that goes across the spectrum of human endeavor. And I think that the more you make yourself that person in a variety of places, and it doesn't require an enormous amount of effort, but certainly if you're a writer or you're an artist, a writer should be able to be entertaining on Twitter. An artist should be able to put up interesting looking things on Instagram. That gets you a following. I can honestly say the best thing about the internet, and maybe the worst thing, but the best thing is that it is a bit of a meritocracy. The best joke wins. The good photograph gets passed around. The interesting art will get seen. And obviously, there is work in all of that. Maintaining those personas and those various social media accounts is work. But when you come to do your Kickstarter, that work pays off in spades.
Counterpoint. One person on this panel I know, like I met a lot of times Charlie before I talked with him, and the thing that convinced me about his work was not he being big and bold and gregarious. He was on panels and stuff. He was pretty soft spoken at his table, but Pat Shand said that White Ash was his favorite comic that he read in the past year, and I was like, well, who? He reads 1,000 comics. Who was this guy? And then I saw him at a show, and we talked for, I don't know, a minute maybe that first time that I talked to you, and then I saw him at another show, and he was there, but I don't know, I don't necessarily think that you need to be you can be the kind of person as long as you that is. Sorry, I don't want to speak to Charlie for Charlie, but I just remember my experience with Charlie was he had a great book, and he just said, here's the book, here's the thing, and I was blown away by the thing, and then I became obsessive about picking his brain at every chance that I could get, and talking to him because the thing that he made was so good. That being said, it is not hard to find Charlie. Anytime, right. He's on tons of panels.
And by the way, I'm not saying that you have to have a specific kind of persona on panels and at conventions and on social media. Just have one. Yeah. Just be internally consistent, and that builds a trust with the audience. And I think that is a thing that will generally work in your favor going forward. We only have a few minutes left, so I want to wrap up and talk future plans with everyone. Emma, what's the next step?
The next step for us is fulfillment. But for anybody that missed out on the campaign itself, if this is the first time that you're hearing about it, if you search for us at Immortal Global on social, you'll still be able to go and purchase the comic and take a look.
Great. And are you going to do another campaign in the future? Do you have anything set up for that?
We will. Watch this space. Yeah, follow us and watch this space.
And where can we find you on the interwebs?
Our website is immortal-studios.com, and our social handle, if you search for Immortal Global, you'll be able to find us.
Great. And Russell, what's next for you?
I have Ichabod Jones, Volume 2, the first new volume in 6 years. The first new stuff really since 2010 that I've written. And that'll be on Kickstarter September 1st. If you go to russellnolte.com, you can join our mailing list and read the first issue for free. We're super excited with where Ichabod's going, and this will be my lucky number 13th campaign.
That's a lot of campaigns. I'm impressed with your energy.
4th this year.
Wow. And David, your first one goes live tomorrow?
It goes live Monday, first thing Monday morning. So yeah, you can follow it. Just look up Project Saffron on Kickstarter, or you can go to, you have the link down in my thing, bit.ly/Project Saffron.
Very nice. And Charlie, what's next for you? Charlie, are you there? Did you freeze? I think Charlie may have frozen. Charlie. I think Charlie may have frozen. Charlie is publishing with Scout Comics. I don't know what his next Kickstarter thing is. As we've said earlier, White Ash is really, really great. We have a couple of minutes left. I have a question. I feel like we answered how do you introduce Kickstarter potential backers who haven't heard of it. I feel like Charlie hit that pretty well. I want to see if there's, yep, Charlie is gone. Does anybody have a feeling about Kickstarter versus Indiegogo? Russell, did you ever use Indiegogo?
I did. Indiegogo has become a cesspool of Comicsgate humans who use Comicsgate, and so I would not be on there if my life depended on it. However, Kickstarter is very good for movie projects and for tech projects and for other kinds of projects, but like I absolutely refuse to be associated with it while it has an association with the kinds of humans who use it right now.
You mean Indiegogo? Yeah.
Yes.
I will say that one of the reasons that Comicsgate is exclusively on Indiegogo is that Kickstarter has quality controls. And that's something I think people who want to use Kickstarter should know, is you have to build your project, show it to Kickstarter, and they say yes, no. Sometimes they tell you to tweak things. The first Kickstarter I did for a movie, they one of my partners had really skewed some values, like he had overvalued the posters and undervalued the Blu-rays and things like that. So they said, no. The poster is $10 and the Blu-ray is $25. Don't be crazy. You're going to hate yourself for making that decision. So someone just asked, how far in advance do you need to have your Kickstarter built to get it approved? You do get to pick your launch time. I would give it at least a week. Sometimes the turnaround is a little slow.
I would like to say a month, because you then can you can create a Project Saffron setup page, and you can promote that for weeks on end. So you don't have to have it built, but you do have to have it approved, and then you can create your notification link. And like that has become a real big deal for Kickstarter this year.
I want to say they take 3 to 5 business days to approve. I think we got lucky, and I think we got approved within the first 48 hours or 72 hours. But yeah, I would give you some time.
It is an actual human.
Yeah.
And you can actually email Argo, the person who runs the comics part on, there's an actual human behind everything, and some people think that it should be more algorithmic, but the thing I love about Kickstarter, besides the fact that it's a public benefit corporation and it has hashtag Black Lives Matter at the literal top of every page, is that it's a actual human being who you interact with. And I'm so sick of algorithms. I just cannot even tell you how sick I am of having to deal with computers and not humans.
Yeah. And I think it's worth mentioning with the slowdown in the comic book industry, the out of Kickstarter comic book industry, that Kickstarter doesn't seem to have slowed down. Kickstarter projects, in defiance of everything else that's going on in the world right now, Kickstarter projects actually seem to be doing very, very well. And starting about 4 or 5 months ago when the COVID lockdown really happened, what I was hearing internally from Kickstarter and from some of the people on this panel was that there weren't really a lot of comics projects on there, and there was a demand for more. So I think the good news I can give everyone watching is there's room for you on Kickstarter. And if you have a project in mind, don't wonder if the market can bear it. The market can definitely bear it. And we will all watch Project Saffron when we finally find out what the real name is.
Thank you.
And the person who knows the real name of it, it is going to be friggin' awesome, and I cannot wait.
Yes,
Thank
David has not shared that information with me yet. Are any of you doing other panels this weekend, by the way? Let me just ask that.
I've got a spotlight panel tomorrow at, I believe it is 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 o'clock Eastern.
Nice.
Sorry. It's at 1:30. It's at 1:30 Pacific and 4:30 Eastern. Sorry about that.
Very nice. And tomorrow, go ahead, Emma. No, go ahead.
Tomorrow, our founder, Peter Shao, will be doing a panel about rebooting wuxia, which is the genre that we've chosen to put our storyverse in. So if you are familiar with wuxia, you want to know a little bit more, then tune in tomorrow.
Nice. What time is that one?
I think it's at 10 a.m. Pacific time.
Oh, great. And I have a spotlight panel. I'm getting interviewed at 6 p.m. Eastern time, 3 p.m. Pacific. Charlie's back.
Just in time to say goodbye.
Yes.
And tomorrow, just want to say at 6 p.m. I have a thing at 7 p.m. called The Writer's Block, which is my new podcast with Ryland Grant, which will be the first episode. We have David Walker and Erica Schultz as our guests. And I'm sure everyone here will be guests at some point in the future because we're like that. Charlie, where can we find you and what's next for you?
What's next is getting better internet and not having my kids unplug it by accident. You can find me at Charles Stickney on Twitter. I'm always happy to answer any Kickstarter questions that if they weren't answered in the panel. Back everything from these incredible people. They're really wonderful people and amazing creators. Loving working with Emma, and you guys are some of my closest comic friends. So please follow all these people and back their books.
Thank you. And that's my final word is always that comics is a community, and it's a great community. And the way to be successful is to be part of that community and to approach that community with an open heart and an open mind. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, David and Russell and Charlie and Emma, for joining me. You guys are fantastic. And thanks, everyone, for watching. And stay tuned for more fun.
We're on the show. What's up, guys? It's Nick and Dustin with Two Brothers Comics. We're excited about the Mainframe Comic-Con going on right now, guys. This is number 3 for the day.
Number 3.
So we're super pumped about our next guests. Very, very excited. So we're going to be talking to the creative teams, some of the creative teams from Scout Comics.
Yep.
So let's go ahead and bring on, Drew, Charlie Stickney, the co-publisher and writer of White Ash. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. It's great to be here with you guys.
Good. Glad to have you.
Man.
And then we're going to bring on Eric Palicki. Hope I'm pronouncing that somewhat close.
Eric is the only one not here yet. We're waiting for his arrival.
No worries. So Brian Wickman, I know you're in the house, man.
Hello.
Brian, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good.
All right.
And then let's bring on Sheldon Allen.
What's good?
How you doing, Sheldon?
I'm good.
How about it, man? How you doing?
Man, call it, man. No complaints.
Awesome. And then Mr. Saif Ahmed. I hope I'm close. Was I close?
Safe.
Safe.
Safe. Yes.
Not close at all.
No, don't worry. If you know my legal name, it's a nightmare.
Awesome, guys. So we're glad to have you all on tonight. Get a chance to talk with you all. We all know you have a lot of awesome new books coming out, and definitely appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all about that. So, Charlie, let's start with you first. Let's talk about. I know you've done a couple panels today. Let's talk a little bit about White Ash and your book there. And some of the
well, thanks. So, first of all, I just want to say it's wonderful to be, to see some of these guys who I've been corresponding with a lot. What I love about Scout is it's a company of creators. Yep. And the reason we've been growing really rapidly is we have such amazing creators that we're working with. And all of these books are incredible. So I feel very fortunate. I came to Scout as a creator with White Ash. And, and from that, I've started working as publisher too. Yep. So quickly, we just finished the last issue of the first arc of White Ash is coming out in a couple of weeks. And the quick pitch on that is it's Romeo and Juliet meets Lord of the Rings in rural Pennsylvania. So if you like grounded fantasy set in the real world, the other quick pitch I say is if the guys from Supernatural got stuck in Riverdale, but instead of having to battle, demons from hell, they had to deal with the worst of Mordor. So that's, that's kind of the vibe of White Ash. Today I really want to, put most of the spotlight on these guys because they all have incredible books coming out. And, if you look at that link down below, we have exclusive mainframe number ones from each of these guys that it's a limited print run of 100 and all profits are going to be going to the hero initiatives. And they're all incredible books. So
I'm glad you brought that up. Perfect. So what do you think? Let's start with you, Sheldon. Let's talk about Crucified. So I know this is your new book coming out. Let's talk a little bit about that, kind of the motivation behind it, the inspiration.
Well, quick correction. That's actually my old book.
Okay.
I'm actually on my second book with Scout Comics. We can talk about it though too, if you like, eventually. But I've got another one coming out from Scout Comics. So this is kind of the sequel. This is my second time working with them. It's called Concrete Jungle. That's gonna be out in October. So a quick elevator pitch about that one is, I would guess it's X-Men meets Grand Theft Auto Vice City. Starfield. Wow. It's about this corrupt police detective in a futuristic but retro Miami, and they're on the hunt for a rogue telepath who's hijacking people and committing crimes.
Perfect. So what was the motivations and the inspirations behind that book?
You know what? I'm just proud of my hometown of Miami. I always tell people it's a love letter to my hometown of Miami. It's an insane place. It's a crazy place. It's a frustrating place, but it's home. It's like that crazy family member that you have.
Nowhere else like it.
Well, they may make you pull your hair out, but you know what? That's your family. So this was kind of just my, love letter to Miami, and also, my love letter to those sci-fi buddy cop films of the 80s as well. So.
Awesome.
Absolutely. So and I definitely still want to spotlight Crucified, right? Because people watching at home may not be familiar. I'd love for you to give a little bit of information on that, right? Because it's still available. We can still purchase it, and would definitely love to shout that out.
Right. Crucified is essentially about the return of a Christ-like figure.
Okay.
Not really a religious book. It's more so of how society reacts to that person's return. And I describe it more as espionage than an actual religious book. I always say it's like Jason Bourne meets Passion of the Christ. That would be my little elevator pitch for that one.
Okay.
It's
pretty brutal.
That's awesome.
It's crazy because first of all, I gotta give a shout out to Scout Comics because they were brave enough to publish it. They're actually brave enough to publish all of my books. Actually, I know I kind of make the air out sometimes and some of the stuff in there, but they took it upon themselves to publish it, and I wrote it years ago, and it just seemed really pressing because a lot of the stuff that happened, particularly in the beginning of the book, seemed like it started to happen actually in society. You talk about uprisings and protests, and I don't want to use the word riot, but something like that. So Crucified is available. I'm working on volume 2 right now as we speak.
Good. Well, so Drew, if you can highlight the comment from John, He's given props to Crucified, says it's absolutely amazing. So that's fantastic, man. Absolutely wonderful. And then you said your newest one, Concrete Jungle, comes out in October, right?
That's correct.
Fantastic. So, all right, so let's move on then. Let's talk to Brian. Let's talk to you a little bit about Grit. So that, and he's gone. There he is.
Hey.
So Brian, tell me a little bit about Grit. I know number one is actually going to second or third printing, right?
Moving to the second printing now.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So Grit launched on July 29th. So what's that, 2 weeks ago or so? It is a Southern Fried Sword and Sorcery story. It's about an aging monster hunter and a witch who wishes he would chill out and stop killing stuff.
So your motivations are definitely going to be quite a bit different than, Sheldon's for his book, but kind of what was your inspirations for that one?
I am just a diehard, old school sword and sorcery fan.
Yeah.
But I also acknowledge that it can be sort of a stupid, blunt genre. So it was just sort of taking all the stuff that's fun about that and stretching it a little bit.
Yeah.
And just pushing it in the direction where it acknowledges its own sort of ultra violence as maybe not the best way to solve every problem, but without sort of beating the reader over the head with it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So that's fantastic. So when is the second printing coming out?
Charlie, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's the second week in September is the second printing. Issue 2 is out later this month, and then I think a week or two after that, the second printing for issue 1 hits.
Man,
I think so. Sometimes it's a little dicey with Diamond in terms of when they deliver our titles, but we're hoping it'll be out in the second week of September.
Man, that's huge. Congratulations to you on that.
Yeah, thanks.
So is that your first book with Scout?
It is. Yeah, Grit's my first title with Scout.
Awesome, man.
Anytime a number one demands a second printing, man, that's definitely got to be just that's a huge stamp of approval and got to be a really good boost for your your confidence on what you're doing there. It kind of solidifies that you're doing something right for sure.
Yeah, it's been a weird time for retailers, so it was a little nerve-wracking to see how it was going to go, so I couldn't have asked for a better release on it.
Fantastic, man. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Yasmin. Yasmin?
Yes, Yasmin.
Yasmin, perfect.
Yeah.
We're getting better with names, Dustin.
I told you it was Yasmin. You wanted to argue.
We are brothers, so it happens. So let's talk a little bit about that, man, because this is definitely something where I really want to understand the motivations and kind of inspirations behind it as well.
Yeah, so Yasmin is an intimate story about a teenage Iraqi girl that's having a normal teenage life in Iraq in 2014, and that's when ISIS attacked Iraq and took off third of the country, and she was living in Mosul. She her family just bought a new house, and because they are Shia, they have to escape the country before ISIS, capture them and of course kill them, because the Shia can't live in any territory where ISIS, rules. So the story takes place in two timelines when they are on the escape, and after 2 years when they're actually escaped, and Yasmin has reunited with her family. Mm-hmm. So we follow the story, the two time period together, like jumping back and forth between her struggle to escape and, spoiler alert, she gets captured, of course. Okay. In the first issue, and the whole 6 issues is how she survived the life slavery under ISIS regime, and while in the US, after she comes back, she escaped in 2016. It deals how she came back to a normal life, how she can survive the trauma that she carry with her from these 2 years that unfold during these 6 issues.
Man, that's a pretty strong book.
Yeah. And the previews are available for that on Scout Comics.
Well, issue 1 is actually is out last month and got great reviews. I'm so proud of the reviews that the story got.
Yeah, and John in the comments mentioned it's so in your face. The second issue had me shook so good.
Well, the second issue is the hardest of all issues. If you can survive the second issue, like things will get better. But
So
yeah, I literally had tears in my eyes as I was, typing the words
Oh
of
man.
that issue. Yeah, thinking about what if that happened to my daughter or someone I know. Yeah.
Man, that's tough, man. That's very emotional. I don't know if I could get through something like that. I got a 1-year-old daughter, and that would be something definitely put on your heartstrings.
If you're a father, it's a very hard read, but there's a hopeful ending.
Good.
Yeah, so if you stick with it, you will get rewarded.
Perfect. Now I do see Erickson here. I don't know if he's jumping back and forth, but definitely want to talk to him once he comes back. But for anybody that's just joining, so Charlie, you mentioned again, you're running the mainframe #1 issue pack for donations to Hero Initiative. So if anybody's interested in that, the link is in the ticker down below for that for sure. Go check that out. Hero Initiative is a great cause.
Yeah, it's also, again, it's a super low print run. We're just doing up 100 of each of these. You can see they have the mainframe logo on them, and you can buy them as a pack. All the proceeds are going to the Hero Initiative. And I just want to say something before Eric tells you about his incredible book as well. I mean, one of the things I love with Scout is that we have such diverse creators telling such different types of stories, but they're each exceptional in their own way. And for me as a publisher, that's the real joy, is being able to find these, find people and help their stories get read by as many people as possible, because these are just incredible books.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was something that I've actually seen you say in a bio, as a producer. As a producer, when you were doing the children's TV series, that you were happy to help people find the great things in what they're doing, and help push that when they're trying to get their stuff out there. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really should be your job as as a company, is you champion what's great about the projects that you have, and you shouldn't take on any projects that don't have at least something exceptional that you can feel solid in championing. And each of these people have not only a project, but as creators, they're also wonderful people. So
absolutely. So Eric, nice to have you. Eric, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. You guys hear me okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah, I had to jump from my phone to my computer and back again.
It's all good. We're glad to have you here. So we want to talk to you a little bit about your new book coming out. Your new book, Atlantis wasn't built for tourists, right?
Yeah, I did not realize when I titled the book that it was going to be such a mouthful, but but here we are.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about the book, and for the people watching, kind of a little bit about the story and some of your inspirations and motivations behind it.
Sure. So the elevator pitch is it's H.P. Lovecraft meets Sergio Leone.
Okay.
It's sort of a modern set Western about a drifter named Lucas Lewis, who wanders into a small town in the Pacific Northwest and finds that the town is sort of in thrall to dueling supernatural forces. And he decides to intercede on the town's behalf. And as they say, hijinks ensue.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So what was your inspiration? I mean, kind of why this story? What made you write this one?
So the movie A Fistful of Dollars is one of my favorite movies of all time. And it's, it is part of a long lineage of media that have told a very similar story, both before and after. So, there's Kurosawa's movie Yojimbo, there's the Bruce Willis movie Last Man Standing from the 90s, the Azzarello Luke Cage miniseries, Takashi Miike's Sukiyaki Western Django, all basically use the same plot and sort of put their spin on it. And as a fan of both that story and of H.P. Lovecraft, I kind of wanted to smoosh the two together. and sort of tell a story that's very similar to that. That will be familiar to people, but kind of put my own unique spin on it.
Absolutely. Perfect. So that's a lot of high quality books coming out of Scout Comics. And I know you guys go ahead.
I'm just going to say that comes out next Wednesday.
Yep.
So number 1 drops next Wednesday. Just want to let people know it is a great book. It has this amazing moment where, it's just like one of those turning point moments where you think things are bad for the hero, but it's really much worse for everyone else. So, it's like one of those moments. And I think that's one of the great things about like that stranger who wanders into town, like when the big biker gang comes out and they're about to do what they do. And then that look in their eyes when all of a sudden they realize, this isn't like it's gone every other time. So, Eric captures that really well.
Perfect.
Thanks, Charlie.
Sure.
So let me ask you guys, is this the first time you guys have all been on a panel together? Or all kind of been in the same room chatting? So that's pretty cool. Does anybody have any questions for one another or any comments for each? I'd love to kind of open it up a little bit since this might be kind of the first time you guys have all had a chance to really chat.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say, Eric mentioned Sergio Leone. I just got to say, rest in peace, Ennio Morricone, the great composer of all those great Western films. So I'm already interested just from that little name drop right there. So.
Awesome.
Also, I think Eric forgot Bug's Life.
A Bug's Life.
Yeah, Bug's Life.
That's awesome.
Now, are these all going to be available through the monthly Scout subscription boxes that are being put out too?
Sure. What we're doing at Scout is we're trying to put books in the hands of people however they want to get books. I mean, first and foremost, we want to support the LCS, and we have a really strong relationship with a lot of shops, and that's growing very rapidly. But through Scout, through our website, you can subscribe to a monthly subscription box, which basically has all the titles that come out in any given month, plus some limited edition variants. So like there was a different cover for the first issue of Grit. Maybe it's a virgin cover, and sometimes there's like a piece of original artwork that we maybe get 3 or 4 of and put those in, randomly in some boxes. So, we're just trying to find different ways to get our books to people.
Yeah.
And it's, again, you look at this panel and it's a very diverse field in terms of the stories that they're telling. But they're all so good.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'd like, we're looking to do at Scout going forward is build this creator network. So, if any of you guys want to read one of these books, reach out to me if you haven't had a chance, or talk amongst yourselves, share, get to know, what the other Scout creators are doing, because together, we're trying to grow the company and make sure that we keep having these sellouts. Vlad recently sold out, Murder Hobo sold out, Grit sold out. I'm hoping Atlantis Wasn't Built for Tourists, which I think is a fantastic title, is going to sell out as well. And Concrete Jungle, and the critical recognition for Yasmin has been off the charts. People love that book. So I mean, it's just it's a wonderful thing to be able to say, oh, you want something bloody in your face? Boom, here you go. You want something that's going to tug at your heartstrings? Boom, here you go.
It makes you have a very. Were you going to say something, Eric?
Well, yeah, I was just going to talk. Well, we talk about sellouts. I do want to say for this panel and for anyone watching that I did pledge on Twitter that if Atlantis Wasn't Built for Tourists #1 sells out, my main character has some fairly extensive tattoos, and I will get the same tattoo if Atlantis 1 sells out. And I'll do, I'll live stream it. I'll figure out some way to get everyone involved.
Awesome.
That's a pretty big commitment there. What do some of the tattoos look like?
So, I mean, the title is Atlantis Wasn't Built for Tourists. So he's got some very nautical themed tattoos. He's got a really cool octopus kraken tattoo with the tentacles going down his right arm.
That would be
and being that I live here in Seattle, this is going to pull double duty since they just unveiled that, our NHL team is going to be the Kraken.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome. Absolutely awesome.
Another thing that Scout has recently started doing that's really cool, as far as talking about different ways to get the books into people's hands, are the I don't know exactly, I forget what they're called, but the vending machine style things that you guys have been putting in shops. I've seen those look really cool. That's definitely a neat way to get the books out there too, just to be able to set one of those up in the shop and just have the books there for people to get that way too.
Yeah, it's just to clarify, it's actually a display, but it looks just like a real vending machine, because a lot of people ask us, when the comics fall down, don't they get dented?
Yeah.
It serves the purpose of doing exactly, like, people are noticing them.
Yeah.
And when you're a smaller publisher, you need to find innovative ways to make sure that people see your books. Because like once they see you, it's so easy. Like when you go into a comic book shop and you're like, I'm looking for Superman, I'm looking for Spider-Man. Oh, and I'll get this thing that runs right next to the Incredible Hulk. You've got tunnel vision, but then all of a sudden there's this big orange thing in your face, and you're like, oh, what is this? This is this grit thing. It's very bloody. I'll get 2 of these just in case.
Yeah.
So that's what we're looking to do, is we're finding ways to disrupt the market and making sure that we're everywhere, that people turn around and make them realize, hey, there's some great books.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Brian Silverbacks must have been having some fun with me when he told me it was an actual vending machine then.
Someone might have been having some fun with him and telling him it was an actual vending machine as well.
Maybe.
All right, guys. So Sheldon, is this your first book? This will be your second book, but is this your first kind of working with the publisher?
Actually, no.
Okay.
Crazy enough, my first published gig, my first published comic was actually for Marvel Comics. It was Spider-Man.
Wow.
I actually have it right here. It's actually Spider-Man Unlimited. It's actually drawn. Again, I'm not trying to brag or anything, but it was drawn by Jim Cheung. It was actually right when he was doing Young Avengers. Actually, that was actually my first published comic. And then I took a long hiatus from comics.
Yeah.
Life kind of sort of happens, and you kind of get mixed up here and there. And I would say Crucified is actually my return to comics, but yeah, it's not my first go around with the publisher. Actually, this would be my second. But Scout Comics by far is the best that I've worked with. I mean, I've only really worked with 2, but they're amazing, and that's not even saying that Marvel was bad, because Marvel was incredible. But just working with Scout Comics, the autonomy that they give you. Even when there's an issue, the way that they present it to you is presented as something that's not necessarily a mandate or a demand. They will walk you through it. They will tell you, hey, this is the reason, this is the rationale, and it always makes sense. No matter what you're thinking, no matter how much of a line in the sand you want to draw, when they explain it to you, you're like, you're absolutely right. So my experience has been incredible. Hopefully I can do all of my books with them. That's my plan. Hopefully they'll be happy to have me, but they're by far incredible, amazing people.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the same feel we get anytime we talk to indie creators. It's the same kind of thing. It's a much more appreciated thing to be able to work with a publisher that gives you the freedom to create what you want to create and tell the story you want to tell, which you're not going to really be able to get working with the other 2. So that seems to be across the board how everybody feels working with these indie publishers. So and Scout definitely, I mean, kind of like everybody's been talking about, how different every book is, and it's never a thing of whether or not, you're doing what you want to do or what they want to do. You can work together, but you still get to tell your story.
Yep. Absolutely. So real quick, an Englishman in San Diego says one of the most exciting prospects in comics that's coming along in some time. So that's a huge shout out to you guys, not only Scout from a high level, but I mean, really, that speaks volumes to you guys as the writers and creators of these new titles. And then All the Fixins podcast asked a great question, and we can kind of open this up, I think, for everybody to kind of answer. So what separates Scout from other publishers from a creator standpoint? So anybody want to take the first leap on that maybe he's worked with another publisher?
I'll go. So I've done a lot of work from a lot of different publishers across the board, and I really think that this is to sort of piggyback on something Sheldon said, is that the autonomy that I've had, working with Scout, as well as just the enthusiasm of I know that it is a stacked roster of talent that Scout has, but I really feel like everybody has given me just the same amount of attention that every other creator is getting. They're obviously as enthused about the work as I am, and they've been great about making sure that panels like this happen, that these individual books are put in front of retailers across their entire network of stores. It's been a really incredible opportunity to sort of see. As opposed to other publishers where it's like, okay, the book is done, we're going to forget your name and phone number now. Just the hand holding that's happened through this whole process. And I mean that in the best way possible has just been awesome.
Yeah. Perfect. Anybody else? I know, Sheldon, you kind of gave us a good spill, but anybody?
I feel like just kind of echoing what both Sheldon and Eric said, I've always felt very comfortable sort of bouncing ideas off of, especially like Charlie, David, James, anyone at Scout who will have, whose ear I can grab for a second if I'm like stuck with something on how to proceed. I feel like they've never pushed me in any one direction, but are always super available for feedback, and that's great.
Awesome.
Perfect.
From our perspective, from the Scout perspective, I think like if you look at the way, say Woody Allen directs, he directs through casting. He writes a script and then he tries to find the right people to carry off the role, and he's very hands off. What we try to do, our direction through casting is to try to find books that we think are great and creators that we think are great, and then give them room to be, what they are, these great creators, and support that. So for us, we try to do all our vetting when we're looking through the titles, and we have a board of 6 people that are looking at submissions, and we do a lot of back and forth about, what's the strength of this book? Like the art's really good, but I don't know if the story's strong enough. Is this the right team to tell this story for us? Is this stepping on, these other books that we already have out? And so we try, at that level to make sure that we're assembling a roster that's going to have the quality that builds, that then in turn is going to help all the other brands. Because I think like the success of Grit is going to help Atlantis Wasn't Built for Tourists. And all these things kind of piggyback upon each other, because now people are like, ooh, what's the next #1 from Scout? What's the next series? And so then when Sheldon comes back with Concrete Jungle, it's going to have a much different reaction than he had with Crucified, because the brand has exploded since Crucified came out. And the number of shops that we're in now and the deals that we're setting up, it's night and day, and we're hoping in a year from now to be night and day from where we are right now as well.
Absolutely. Well, I tell you, just the growth we've seen as comic book fans, and the content coming out, I mean, we have absolutely enjoyed everything. So, as fans, to you guys, definitely appreciate everything you guys are putting out and all the efforts to go into it. And just to echo kind of what a Bearded Comic Bro said there in the comments, great group of creators. Absolutely. So, but guys, I know we're getting close to the end and needing to wrap up. So what I'd like to do, and we can start with you, Charlie, kind of tell anybody that you have coming out or what you might have coming out soon, and kind of where they might be able to find you on social media and kind of follow you that way.
I'll just say real quickly, I'm at Charles Stickney at Twitter. And we have Atlanta Wasn't Built for Tourists coming out next week. Grit #2 is coming out really soon. Yasmin #2 is coming out soon. And The Amazing Concrete Jungle is coming out really soon. And then I'll let everyone else speak about their own books a little bit more.
Sheldon, we'll go with you next then.
Just follow me on Twitter at Sheldon Wrote It. I've always traditionally strayed away from social media. I've always hated it. I've always said, if I want to keep up with the people I went to high school with, I wouldn't have tried to graduate so quickly. But, you almost have to sort of have a social media these days. And I'm trying to, become more involved. So please follow me at Sheldon Wrote It. Crucified, it's already trade paperback. That's available. Concrete Jungle is coming out in October by the amazing Carl Mostart. He just finished off of DC Unkillables, actually. I think he's got a couple other DC projects coming up. We have Warnier on the colors and Matt Bowers on the letters. He's my right-hand man. So, pick that up in October.
Perfect, perfect. Mr. Safe?
Yeah, so Yasmin, first issue just came out last month, and it's going to be a monthly issues until hope maybe January. So it's 6 issues, and that's the arc gonna end. And I take my time with my project. I have 9 or 10 ideas.
Okay.
And actually, I talked to the same artist who did Yasmin about doing a new project. So we're cooking something. She actually, I gave her all the ideas, and she gonna pick what she liked to do next. So it's from sci-fi to crime to superheroes. So I don't know what she's gonna pick. We'll see.
Perfect. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for that. Brian, you go next.
Let's see. Grit number 2 is out in 2 weeks. The pre-order window for the second printing of issue 1 is still open for a couple more days. So that'll be out mid-September. Issue 3 drops end of September. That is the end of the first arc. Please buy Eric's book next week so he can get those tattoos. I don't know if James is still in the chat, but Charlie Shadow approved volume 2 of Grit on Twitter earlier today. But yeah, I've got a couple things cooking, but nothing announced for the future.
Perfect. So where can they find you on social media, if anywhere?
I am at BM Wickman just about everywhere.
Perfect. Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you, sir. And then Eric?
Sure. I'm at Eric Palicki on Twitter and Instagram. I'm usually pretty funny on Twitter, so give me a follow. As everyone said, Atlantis Wasn't Built for Tourists #1 drops on the 19th, which is this coming Wednesday. I hope everyone checks it out so that I have to go drop a shitload of money on tattoos, which I'm looking forward to anyway. I do want to just quickly shout out the creative team, the rest of the creative team on the book: Wendell Cavalcanti on art, Mark Dale on colors, Sean Lee did the lettering, and Casper Wingard did the first issue cover.
Perfect.
Awesome. Well, if you need a place to showcase that tattooing, man, hit us up, because I know and we'd love to be able to have you on.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, go ahead. All the Fixins podcast. Charlie, any plans for an anthology series to showcase talent?
I can't say definitively. I mean, it's something that we're exploring, but right now we want to focus on showcasing the talent that we have in the pipeline. I think as a company, you want to get a little bit bigger before you start spotlighting new voices, because that's mostly what we do. We want to make the voices that we have established, and then once we do that, and once we have a foundation, it makes it easier for us to spotlight some new voices together.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, anything else? Any final statements? Any words from anybody else on the panel?
I would say also follow Scout Comics on Twitter. Yep. There's also Scout HQ on Facebook. Also, the link that's going down at the bottom, I'll say one more time, it's a limited edition of each of these creators, #1, a print run of only 100. So if you're a collector, you're going to want that. And all the profits are going to benefit the Hero Initiative. And plus, these are fabulous books. So it's win, win, win.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Well, guys, thank you so much for being here. We do truly appreciate the time you all spent with us. And Drew, we'll turn it back over to you, my friend.
All right. Thank you very much, team from Scout Comics. Charlie, I saw a lot of you today, and I think we're good friends now. I appreciate y'all spending some time with us, raising some money for the Hero Initiative. That's what Mainframe Comic-Con is all about. And I'm going to throw it up one more time before we get you guys out of here. That is the bit.ly/Scout Mainframe. Really easy to remember. Real good deal on these. 4 books for $40, all for charity. exclusive variants limited to 100. Where are you going to get, a book limited to 100 for $10? It's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen anywhere else. It's not going to happen with any of these other cons going on. It's not going to happen with any of these other publishers out there. So make sure you guys swing by. You can actually get to this through the Scout Comics website main page. We found that out earlier as well. So if you don't remember that bit.ly link, just remember Scout, and I think that'll be easy enough for everybody. Thank you guys so much for coming through. And the two brothers are going to stick around with me for a little bit, and we're going to wrap up what happened today at the con and do a little sign off. But thank you guys. We're going to let you go now. We appreciate you very much. All right. I got two brothers. That's right. Two brothers that were here in multiple halls all day long. And we're going to talk some Mainframe Comic-Con right now. I'm going to bring you guys back on right now. Let's look. Let's get this set up perfectly. Look, this is the fanciest convention ever. You didn't even see. We're so appreciative that you guys have come out and help us with some hosting duties.
Absolutely,
you guys were all over the place today. You were on one of the first panels of the day, just like Charlie was on one of the first panels of the day and one of the last panels of the day. You guys spent some time with Goran Suzuka earlier, talking about his art.
Yep.
That's pretty awesome. What other panels did you guys have a hand in today?
So we did that one, Zach Kaplan, and then this one. And then tomorrow at 4 p.m., I forget the hall, but we're doing the exclusivevariants.com conversation on behalf of Simple Man's Comics and the 616. We're going to have John Boy Myers and a few other cover artists on there and be talking about those exclusive variants that are going to be coming out and kind of the process behind that. So it should be a really interesting conversation.
It's going to be at Hall D at 4 Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. Yep. And not only will John Boy Myers be there, I hear that Megan Hutchinson is bringing her exclusive variant for the Sandman Lock and Key book.
Yep. That one shot, right? Yep.
So we're going to get a good look at that. Guys, looking at the schedule right now, all I can say to myself is I can't wait till these reruns come out, because I got a chance to do a little what I call panel surfing today, and open up another window while I was moderating some panels and watching things and making sure that things ran smoothly. But just the panels on Hall C today that I got to be a fly on the wall for. John from Word Balloon had some mic issues when he first signed on, so I got to spend half of Dan Jurgens' panel interviewing Dan Jurgens.
There you go.
Amazing. I also got to see Dan Jurgens have a conversation with Jerry Ordway, Elliot Magan, and Paul Kupperberg about writing Superman over the course of 50 years of that character's history. We got to see some really great indie creators with the Hollywood Comics IP connection. We had a really great Kickstarter panel. Rafael Garcia Henchman is one of the coolest looking projects I've seen in a long time. I love Schrader's Baby Badass, so I definitely suggest you guys check out Rafael Garcia Henchman. Dude, the team of artists that came from Albatross Funny Books, I can't say enough good things about those guys. And we got more AWA coming tomorrow. AWA panel about the future of the publisher in Hall B at 2:30. There's going to be a horror panel that kicks off the day in Hall C. And today they brought the crime panel, which was absolutely amazing. It's just like Mike Diodato and Axel Alonso. These are names that I've seen inside of the funny books that I buy on a regular basis over the course of 30 years as a collector. And to get to sit down and pick their brain or to be there while somebody else does is an absolute pleasure. And dude, I'm just looking at all the things I missed. I caught a little bit of the Walking Dead panel. I caught a little bit of the Voices of Justice League. Geez, I gotta be working this damn thing when they got the Voices of the Justice League doing a table read.
Yeah, I'm excited to catch the one with Kerry Hiroyuki, who played Shang Tsung in the first Mortal Kombat movie. I was really excited about that.
We're busy doing the Scout comic panel. That's the thing that's so great about Mainframe, and also such a pain at the same time. It's just too much. But man, we're going to be hitting everybody up with Rewind information as soon as it comes out. Guys, make sure that you're following Mainframe on Twitter. That's at MF Comic Con. You follow us on Instagram at Mainframe Comic Con. Follow us on the Facebook page. Make sure that you're getting all the information about when you're going to be able to see the rewind of this stuff, guys. Nosferatu is a fantastic show. I didn't get the chance to see that. I saw a little bit of the Cullen Bunn panel, and he was being interviewed by Jason Inman and Ashley Victoria Robinson. And I was like, oh, I love them. Then I realized they were on 2 panels on the same hall previously. So they did 3 panels today, and I didn't get a chance to see it. We got Kevin Eastman was in Hall D. Sophie Campbell was in Hall D as well. A lot of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles stuff. Scout brought us exclusive variants, but Source Point also brought us exclusive variants. Go to the Mainframe shop and get yourself one of 2 different Source Point Press Broken Gargoyles #1 exclusive Mainframe variants. I don't know how rare those are. I know there's dude, 100 each being print for Scout Comics. I gotta go over there and order one before they're all gone. And when I look at what's going on tomorrow, guys, I'm super excited for just a bunch of different stuff.
Oh yeah, it's a huge lineup tomorrow. I mean, you're talking. I believe tomorrow is Donnie Cates, right? Tomorrow,
starts the panel. Donnie Cates, man.
We got the Mad Cave panels tomorrow. Or?
Al Ewing.
3 separate Mad Cave panels about 3 separate really great Mad Cave titles. I'm excited about all of them.
And then one of our absolute favorite books of last year and this year, David Boer and Drew Zucker
with Canto.
Canto is going to be going off at 7:30 tomorrow night, Eastern Standard Time. Beyond that, I'm just looking at some of the things on here that a lot of people might not know about. We're doing Source Point Press is going to be playing a brand new game. They're bringing Monstrosity, which is it's like a win, lose, or draw with monsters you make up. I can't wait to see how much fun they have with that. You can also pre-order that game on the shop panel. Guys, did you guys get a chance to check out our exhibitor page?
Yes. A lot of great stuff. I believe Splash Paper selling some great stuff.
Some of the books and stuff that are up. I mean, golly, you go in there and get you an AF-15. I mean, there's original artwork. I mean, all kind of crazy stuff on there.
The original cover of Giant Size X-Men #2.
Wow, that's crazy. That's incredible.
I bet
LJD's been on there all day.
9.8.
Yeah. And then don't forget all the great stuff going on in Hall E with our man, Great Legend.
Oh my goodness, he was talking to Dada 5000. Do you guys know who Dada 5000 is?
I don't.
I saw him talking to him a little bit earlier.
Who beats people up for fun and for money. And I tell you what, they had some technical difficulties, but when the conversation was rolling between the two of them, they were both so hyped up. It was absolutely amazing, man. It's just, this has been a fantastic experience. I can't wait to get into tomorrow. And honestly, I can't wait to start planning the next one. This is going to be something that we do moving forward, and I'm super duper excited about it.
It's been a great event. You guys have done a wonderful job with it.
Thank you guys so much for being a part of it.
We appreciate the invite.
Oh man, you know what? We had to have Simple Man's Comics had to bow out gracefully due to some personal things and some work related things, and we were like, oh man, who are we going to get? I looked at Chad in the eye. I said, what about them 2 brothers?
And we are brothers. Everybody's asked us to do. We are in fact brothers. So we
appreciate your
2 brothers, but only 2 sleeves, man. 2 brothers, but only 2 sleeves.
Yeah, man. Had to rock the Comic Jabroni shirt.
Yeah, well, that is some sad news, and I don't know all the details on that. I've gotten little words here and there throughout the day, and I've kind of been glued to this chair, so it's been hard to figure it out exactly what happened and what the deal is. But I just want to say, I want to take the moment right now to say, one of the dudes in this community who didn't seem like he had beef with anybody, and that is a rarity. In any community, that is a rarity. He will definitely be missed. His content will be missed. But I'm a little sick to my stomach even saying that, knowing that he's got a wife and children, and they're going to be missing that dude as well. Definitely shout outs to Edwin, the comic jabroni. The more news that I guess everybody gets about this, the more of sense we'll try to make of it. But somebody texted me in the middle of a panel, and I just said to him, like, you know what, man, there is so much going on today that I should be excited about, and I kind of feel dirty being that excited about it when something that sad happens, and something that unexpected. I don't think anybody can see that coming.
No.
Thank you guys so much for being a part of this. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up, and we're gonna end this. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna go to black, and we're gonna have a moment of silence for the comic jabroni man.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you.